Greetings and welcome to the Geek Speak episode number 19. We have a special guest on this episode for the 5-year celebration week, month, year of Flesh and Blood, and it's none other than the familiar face of Sloop Dupe himself. Sloop, how have you been?
I've been doing pretty good. Just finally actually getting some content out there, working on a video that I'm hoping to finish today or not today, but tomorrow or the next day. So, just been enjoying Flesh and Blood and where it's at. It's crazy to think that it didn't die after 2 years. Amazing.
Yeah, we got through the Monarch phase, we got through the Tales of Aria phase, the Ice phase. Now it's Ice is back, right? Ice is back, baby.
More fairway. I'm still not happy. Actually, I play Enigma and Florian. I'm good with it. You bring all the ice. It doesn't bother me.
I'm playing Mechanologist, so it concerns me a little bit. But I also don't play that professionally, obviously. So, I'm not as worried. But, yep, it'll be fun.
Yeah, just play with a group of friends who all hate ice, so nobody plays it, and you're good to go.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, that works. Let's see here. So I would like to make this episode mostly about the 5-year anniversary of Flesh and Blood, because that is the latest off the presses. That has been something that it seems the world is abuzz with, and it is interesting to think that really it's been 5 years. I mean, heck, I think the last time we physically saw each other was at Baltimore, if I recall, and that was over a year ago at this point, easily. So. Right?
Yeah, Baltimore was the last international trip I've taken, actually. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to really travel this year. But a couple Canadian events. I'm gonna go to Toronto in January. I'm hoping, but and apparently we're getting a new set in January, so that'll be interesting.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah.
I think it's January is when they said the next one is. So I think it's probably on the website somewhere. I know that they had like the timeline of what's coming up, but
they used to have these really nice roadmaps that were at the kind of the conferences where they would say, here's our kind of agenda for stuff, and I think they still have a couple of those. Brian did the last one, I believe, because I think James was out on maternity leave for his event there, his birth of a family member, so congrats there. It is interesting, though, because I feel like Flesh and Blood, while it's the same, it's also kind of a little bit vastly different than what it was in the kind of younger years, right? Because those first couple of sets, there wasn't as many heroes to choose from. There wasn't as many, folks online, wasn't as many content creators, wasn't as many cosplayers, wasn't as many blog writers, wasn't as many platforms. The Discords weren't as big. The system has evolved over these myriad of time and years. So it's what do you see, or where I heard recently, it was, I think Brian was on a podcast and he had said that they have plans, in air quotes, I'm not going to say that this is a direct quote, but something to do with they have the ability to expand the lore and the card creation out to like 30 something years, because they own the IP and all that. So I think they could seriously go the absolute long haul.
I mean, this is the thing for me that I had put out a tweet once about this, actually, back when I was on Twitter. And it's just like the idea that a lot of people have nowadays is if you don't start something with a big IP, your game's not going to succeed. They look at the success of One Piece or the success of Lorcana, which like Lorcana seems to be slipping. It's no longer the big, everybody hops onto the big new thing. And then when it's no longer the big new thing, they just leave for something else. But you need a game like Flesh and Blood that's so high quality that it retains some of those people. You're going to have waves of new people. You want to retain some, and you want slow and steady growth. The fact that LSS created their own IP not only gives them the freedom to do what they want and in control, but also, like, quite frankly, Pokemon, Warhammer, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh! All of these had to start as a fresh thing that was not an already established IP. Right? Like, and James said it right. It was him who had pointed out that all the IP games, just quite frankly, are the ones that die. And it's because they're there to make money. They're not there to create this big booming world that has longevity. They don't really care if it lasts more than 5 years. If it makes them a few $1 million, the company doesn't care, right? They'll just fire the developers and make them make a new card game like Bandai does all the time.
Union Arena, I think, just came out. That was the newest.
What game, sorry?
You think it's called Union Arena? It's the Bandai's
oh my
newest
god,
game.
the game
or
looks
something.
terrible. Oh, it looks so bad. Our store picked it up because one of the guys who helps the owner out wanted to play it, and it just looks. He's like, "Oh, you want to play Union Arena?" I looked at the cards, like, dude, this is like this game is gonna last like a year or two, and it's gone. It looks terrible. The art's like it's just so generic. It's just like, kids' first card game, I guess.
Look, I know we're going to talk about Flesh and Blood, but I have to get this out of the way as the very first question. It's not related to Flesh and Blood, but
All
the
right.
whole MetaZoo Meta 2 thing. What is your thought? I haven't heard anybody really, I haven't heard you talk about this. What is your thoughts about that kind of, I guess, purchasing the IP and coming back? Do you feel like they have a chance to come back? Or, I mean,
No.
there's some big name people with that company, apparently.
I mean, I guess, but like it feels like the Logan Paul of card games. It feels like the most vapid bullshit, just stupid investor scum kind of filled game. Like it just like it was run like shit. It looks like shit. The cards aren't even centered. Everybody hopped on it. I know some people play it because they like to collect. I do see some people having appeal to that. But like an overwhelming majority of the fan base was guys like, you know, I kitchen table TCG, quite frankly, who just hops on every new card game to try and make money, and then when that card game tanks, he hops onto the next one and onto the next one, and just creates that cycle of just going from game to game. And it's just like you've got the name of MetaZoo associated with it. Everybody, there's a reason it's called MetaPoo by more people than like more people. I feel like dislike MetaZoo than like it, and it's also like a strong hatred for MetaZoo. I think because it just the quality was so bad and the type of people who gravitated towards it. Like it just, I mean, they tried to do NFTs, like they were trying to sell. Oh, they're selling these poker card things, and they're selling the special promos that come with it on another Kickstarter. Which, like, if the company's successful, why are you doing another Kickstarter? Just sell the product. But like it's just everything about that was such a dumpster fire, and I feel like some people try to defend it, but if you look at the views for MetaZoo content, nobody gave a shit. None of the content was any good. Like I think it's a good reflection that like this shit is dead in the water. Rudy's not going to touch it with a 20-foot pole anymore, I don't think. And I just who cares? Like I still remember the day. If we're talking about the 5-year anniversary, I remember when it was MetaZoo versus Flesh and Blood, and when Flesh and Blood's market from Monarch and Tails crashed first, but MetaZoo was still here. Oh, MetaZoo's so much better than Fab. LSS doesn't know what they're doing. They need to hire more people. They're idiots. They're ruining their game. Look who's still around, motherfuckers. I mean, am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I just,
Okay.
I'm sitting here silent because in the back of my mind, I remember living through these events, right? I don't remember the exact time you got in the game. I don't think I got in at year 1. I think I got in closer to like maybe the beginning of year 2. Monarch was my first official pre-release, right, for the game.
Yeah,
and
Monarch was when I got in, just before.
And it's like, you know, thinking of where that is, who kind of still exists in the maybe creators. I look at things like the time capsule of YouTube, right? Like this will be on YouTube, so theoretically there'll be a time capsule. Actually, I was just listening to the M&R podcast that released today. So when this comes out on Monday,
I was too earlier.
A little bit old, but you know, Roger and you know, they were talking about, or it is Roger, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Roger Bodie.
Gosh, why am I?
Love that guy.
I don't know why I feel so shitty because I keep always in my head. I'm like, I know it's right, but then it's wrong, and then I'm bad with names, good with faces. But they were talking on there between him and Michael about, you know, the entirety of these. There's a person that's going back and documenting all the heroes. It's not We Make Best. It's another channel. I don't remember. Blockout Party.
Mike.
Yeah.
In Prism, yeah.
And they make some really
good videos.
epic videos. And one of the things that was intriguing about that was the reflection that they are now technically canon in the lore of the game because they were involved in some of that history. Ergo, they were in that video that talked about the historical part of Fab. So it's just interesting how like the longer you
I was in the video.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Congrats.
With my really shit old audio, like that was terrible, and I didn't know DaVinci didn't have the AI like click 2 buttons and it fixes your audio for you.
Well, there's a lot in content creation. I think you've even, you know, I've seen your content evolve. I've tried evolving my content. I think that's the perpetual idea is, you know, if you do the same thing time and time again and expect a different result, I think that's the definition of insanity. So for this world of content creation, you have to evolve and you have to try to create new things. So I think there's always something to be said about kind of looking back at yourself. And maybe you said that somebody, it was either you or maybe Riddler Man, that you shouldn't really compare yourself to other people. You should always compare yourself to yourself in the past so that you can measure your improvement based on your own criteria, because otherwise you're just kind of chasing, you know, straws to be able to grasp at things that you can't, ever compete. Like, I'm not going to compete with you, right? I'm not trying to, because you're in a different ecosystem sphere. You have a much larger following than what I have, but you're also creating much different content than I think what I'm trying to target. So it's you got to look at it like it together. All of us do something different, and I think the system is better for it. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to making things too, like, you have to understand you're gonna fail a lot. Like, you might look at you might see some of my most successful videos pop up on your homepage, right? Because, like, you'll see, like, the "is it still worth it" video to pop up again. You look and it's like, wow, 30,000 views, like, that's incredible. But you're not seeing the other, like, 100 videos that only have like 2,000 views that I started out making, because they're not good videos, and so you never see them. You don't see the failures. But if you look back through the channel, you'll see, like, there's things that, even to this day, there's things that I'll try or a different thumbnail style, and it just doesn't work. Like the history of Rune Blades for my spoiler card, I tried to make a video that would do well, but it just, like, it didn't do nearly as well as I thought it would. And I was like, okay, like, the thumbnail didn't really look like my usual ones. I think it just blended in. I could go back and remake it, but it's like, I might at some point. But, you got to fail, figure out what doesn't work, because everything's gonna, like, nothing is gonna work until it does. It's the same with, like, a relationship. Every relationship will fail, like, romantic relationship, until the one that doesn't. And then that's the last one you're going to have, right? So it's like figuring out your craft, even with, like, card games. Like, Flesh and Blood made a lot of mistakes, and now, I'll be real. Not that they're not, like, flawless, obviously, but, like, Mistveil and Rosetta, I mean, aside from Zen, they were really good sets, like, really, really good sets. Heavy Hitters was probably the most balanced, but in my opinion, like, the least interesting of the three. Like, just for me, I think, like, the magic of the other two catch on to that fantasy setting, like, a lot better than just, like, a gladiator arena. But, like, they've had to learn a lot as time's gone on, and they're still, like, an improving development team. They're not perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect. But I think it's, I don't know, I've been enjoying where Flesh and Blood's at. And I think that's just what you got to do when you're doing anything. YouTube, making a card game, you got to fail a lot in order to succeed, or succeed in small ways, but still fail in a lot of others.
Yeah, I mean, iterative development, I mean, that's one of the keys I think I hear all the time from various IT folks, and I think even SpaceX had something like that, which, I don't know if you follow that, but one of the craziest life events that I've ever witnessed happened just within the last couple of weeks, and that was that they launched the giant, I think it was the Heavy, Spaceship Heavy. It went up and then, came back down in the atmosphere, and they caught it on the tower with chopsticks. I mean, just thinking about that, talking to my dad who lived through the moon landing, right? Like, looking at stuff like that and saying, holy crap, is this our version? Is this our generations of the moon landing kind of thing? It's just the things that people can do. It amazes me. But they had to fail a lot of times to get to the point where they could do that. So they obviously came up with some pretty unique stuff to pull that off. But anyways, I'm gonna direct our conversation to, I think, the meat and potatoes of what I'd like to go into, which is I was gonna kind of go back over the history of Flesh and Blood, starting with the kind of the very first couple of products. I was just going to go set by set, kind of just as a maybe a generality, and then talk about maybe things you liked, things you didn't like, maybe, and kind of just go from there, because there's now 14 or 15 sets, and I feel like that'd be a good way to kind of cover the 5 years worth of Flesh and Blood. Maybe any experiences there within that you can sprinkle in would be fantastic. So
sounds good.
Well, the very first product was the Ira Welcome Deck. Now, that was not my first experience getting into Flesh and Blood. Was that something that you got to? I still have these and I've played with them, but yeah. See, I keep my little. By the way, I taped mine. Look how crappy mine looks. Like, look at that.
Mine are in much better condition. This is the dragon one. I got sent this as the content creator.
That's pretty darn
I believe
rare.
last
I think.
year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty good. It's a bit bigger, but yeah, I have a one that I had bought or got given to me, a sealed Ira 2018 deck. So the very original. This is
with
the very
with the
first...
head jab ones in it, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. And I have one that I had opened because I had bought some cards from Face to Face, I think, when I bought some Monarch stuff, and they sent me 2 of these decks. So that's how I ended up with them. And then, I keep this one sealed because this is literally the first thing that they ever printed and released. So it's just like a really cool little piece of history that I get, and I love it. And I have the other one sleeved up, in a box. So
they actually clarified that on the 5-year stream, by the way, and I don't know if you listened to that piece, but apparently the very first thing was the Iron Rock Gauntlet from the what they called Slingshot,
Well,
Underground.
sorry. I mean, yeah, it's not the very first
But
thing. What I
like
mean is
product
like
wise, that is the very
yeah,
first product. Yes, I
it's
think
the
that
first thing
that's
that people like. It's the first thing that like everybody actually had a chance to get because let's be real, not everybody had a chance to get the Slingshot
oh no.
Underground stuff.
And I just
Which
know
like
some person's going to
understandable.
keyboard, away and say, "Oh, actually, the very first." I just figured I'd cut it off at the pass before like somebody did that, and
Hmm.
But yeah, no, the Ira deck is pretty good. I think it was intriguing. What I still don't understand though is it was still 30 cards, and even with Blitz, it's actually 40 cards. So maybe this was so early in the development cycle that they did not develop Blitz knowledge enough. Because really, even in Welcome to Wraith, which is what I'll lead into right now, that set they didn't release Blitz decks. They only released those 4 classic constructed hero decks that really kind of came out. But even those decks weren't to the same caliber as like the current versions of Armory decks. They kind of went away for a while. So
Yeah, I mean the CCE precons, I think the first ones were just like base decks to get people into the game, right?
sure,
And then the so Blitz, I could be wrong, but I think Blitz was actually added around Arcane Rising. I don't think it was there originally. I think they made the Young Heroes for draft and then Blitz became a thing. I could be wrong. Maybe it was UPF that was added, but I think Blitz wasn't like it wasn't there at the start when they were developing. I think the Ira decks were 30 cards and they also don't have equipment and it's 3 cards because it's like half of a CC deck.
yeah,
Right, it's
yeah.
a smaller experience. It's just a welcome experience. Grand Archive did the same. I think Magic's welcome decks are the same. They're not 60 card decks. I think they're like 40 or 20, like 30. So they're like way smaller. It's a smaller experience. It's just to give you a taste of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that the Ira decks did that really wonderfully. But obviously now we have the first strike decks, which are Blitz decks, and they're way better and way more worth
Oh,
the
yeah.
price because there's good cards in them that people use in constructed. So
Well, and something else that I thought was maybe a concept they thought of is if you got 2 of the Ira decks and then combine them together, you would have close to that, 60 or 40 card. But in reality, because there's so many duplicates and you can only have 3 of
3 copies of each
it
already
really
in the deck.
it didn't add up. So that was my only original theory that never seemed to pan out. But that was one of the thoughts back then. So,
Well,
any
you'd
other
have
thoughts?
6 copies of everything that way.
Yeah. Any other thoughts
So,
on
yeah.
Welcome to Wraith by any chance?
Iconic set, best set for starting a game. I mean, let's be real. Like James, I know said he'd go back and design things differently, but man, honestly, Heart of Fiendal, Tome of Fiendal, Fiendal Spring Tunic. You got Snatch. You've got Scar for a Scar. You've got Sink Below, Drone of Brutality. Not Command and Conquer.
Drone is one of my
E-Strike is the
favorite
one I'm thinking
cards.
of. Like, dude, it's such an iconic set. There's like I have nostalgia for it. Like I've been wanting to get like a Welcome to Wraith box, just go hang out with a couple friends and maybe crack it, build sealed decks and play like Ultimate Pit Fight or something.
We did UPF at Baltimore with that, if I recall. I thought so. We we had a blast.
And I pulled you a Rainbow Foil E-Strike.
Yes, and that's in my full master set collection. It's just gonna be just like my the only I have a Fiddy I've ever been able to get's the one that I got from you. So like, it's those cards to me they hold a lot more sentimental value than they do whatever somebody would say. Hey, I'll pay you this for. It's like nope, that's a me. It's part of a memory, right? That's a memory bubble. So. Next up was Arcane Rising, and that was the set I was most enthralled with because the hero of my love came out, which is the Mechanologist Dash, and I know that the Dash is quickly going to the living legend, place in history, and Dash.io is replacing that, but Arcane Rising was interesting for a lot of reasons. It seemed like the game evolved dramatically. There weren't talents at this point, but there were a lot of, I guess what arcane damage came into play. So then you had a little bit more thought processes. I think I wasn't a big Ranger person at the time, but it seemed like Ranger had a lot more complexity to being able to play cards. So, what's your thoughts on Arcane?
I did not like Arcane Rising that much at the start, but it's because I wasn't interested in any of the heroes that much. I kind of tried Dash; she was okay. I try everything except for Azalea. Azalea was the one I was least interested in. Funnily enough, I had bought the CC Precon because I was like, oh, I'll get one of every, and then I have not once played it. But we have a new player that wants to try them, so I'm gonna let them try this, and if they like it, and if they don't have a deck, I might just give it to them. Be like,
Did you get the special one or did you get the
regular? I did not. I got the normal.
I was so mad when I first got this. I thought I got the special one. I was super excited.
It's like it's so hard to tell. Like
I know.
You'd have to set them side by side to be able to, and then it's like, well, what one's the rainbow and what one's like the purpley? Like I don't. They
do you
look
think
almost
they're going
the
to do
same.
that going forward with other random ones, or that was just like a one-off?
Maybe. I mean, how cool would it be if sometimes you could get a cold foil of one
That would
and then like
be
rainbow, right? Like rare, like that'd be really cool. I mean, in Jarl's one, the legendary, maybe most of them are rainbow, but every like 1 in 10 decks is a cold foil.
my script that I'm writing for that, man. It's getting a little bit heated, but I'm also trying to tone it down because I have some hopeful things like we talked about. I think between both of us, not to like derail us too much, but inclusions of things like playmats and just like a dice or like Pokemon ETBs. You've talked about that in length in some of your videos. If they increase the price, hopefully they put that stuff in there. But who knows? Like right, like it could be, but.
A little deck guide, like a
Yep.
little booklet or unfoldable piece of paper that has the deck guide, maybe even a mat, and it's got the
A
terms.
little
Like, I mean, I don't
secret
think you need
lore
that.
book that's cute and small.
Yeah, no, let's do the rule book and then. But yeah, I think it's going to be a much stronger deck. But yeah, just like a dice or a resource counter or something. It's also about like the opening and player experience. Like I know
Oh, yeah.
Steve Jobs was big on this for Apple, of like the box opening experience was part of the product. And I think that's important, and I think that's one thing that Flesh and Blood kind of lacks. Like, whereas like the Armory decks, you open it, it's just the deck. There's nothing special. And I'm not saying you have to go above and beyond, but like a little resource acrylic counter that's like colored the color of whatever the deck is. Like Jarl's could be like a blue, just something small. Like it doesn't have to be.
I've
big.
already spoiled myself because I watched another person open the Dash IO deck, but apparently they have little micro foldable cards in this one that are the 4-part for the Steam counters and -1 armory. So it's kind of cute. But it's
okay.
but it's also something. It's like, okay, I get that. It's not acrylic, but it is a step forward. It's something. It's it's a thumbs up or a half a thumbs up, maybe a partial thumbs up.
It's gonna let you play the deck, and it's gonna end up in the garbage because nobody wants to use little cutout paper, things. But it's something you can at least sit down and play the deck.
In a
Like
pinch,
it's a small
it's
thing.
good.
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I would love something else. Like you got the decks are kind of pricey, and I think the inclusion of like a little acrylic resource counter is just a nice little thing. Because I've had new players ask me like, oh, where'd you get that from? And it's like, well, I got mine from World Championships, the first World Championships at Fab Metal or Magnolia Gaming. They had Fab Metal tokens, make them some, and they had these nice big resource metal ones. And I'm like, you can't really. It's hard to find these. You got to use a dice.
Still
and it's
looking
just,
for the giant content creator dice, man. That is still my goal to find those, and it's been.
I just get Terry Ties dice there.
I know they look good. They really do. So.
I use his because they fit in my academic.
Next up, we have Crucible of War. That was in August of 2020. That was the first expansion set where it actually covered the first heroes from all of those sets. I'll let you go first this time. What did you think of Crucible of War?
So Crew was an interesting beast. I remember having to get Crew first cards for my Dorinthia deck because Crew Unlimited hadn't come out. It was coming out a month after Monarch. And my God, those prices were absurd. $20 Mauvern Skies Blues, anybody? Which are now like what, 10 cents, 20 cents?
They were that expensive? Maybe? Really?
Oh, they were really pricey, $10 to $20, depending on like if you're Canadian, American, when you were getting them. But I do remember when Crew Unlimited came out, I went and got some boxes, and I ended up getting a Shiana, and then I later on pulled a second Shiana.
Wait,
but
from
just,
first
it
edition?
was
Wow.
no Unlimited.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I wish first edition, especially back then, dude. It was so expensive. I could have sold that thing for a lot of money, but it was a really good set. I think Crucible, it's been a little, actually no, some of the stuff is still really good. I mean, Dread Triptych, Rattle Bones, you've got Spoils of War, Twinning Blade, whatever wizard bullshit's in there, Gaze the Ages. I think I don't play wizard because I play good classes. I think Ranger got a card or two. Ninja exists. There's some good stuff. There's some bad stuff, but Beast Within. The Arcanite shard. I think that's a very interesting fable. That's one I still don't own. I have the other two from the first 3 sets, but I don't own the shard. Even though I do like Viscerai, but it was. I think the fact that it upgraded everything is what really made it special. The fact that it was like, here's upgrades to everything. We're gonna expand the decks rather than create new things, right?
And I do agree with a lot of that. Honestly, when I first saw Crucible of War, it was actually, I think my first experience was I bought a little bit of Arcane Rising, then I bought Crucible of War. But I actually came in around the Monarch time, so this was like back on the LGS shelves, and it was intriguing for me to open Crucible of War because that was when I got the extra mechanologist cards, for lack of a better word. But then I also got other stuff, and I'm like, okay, maybe I want to try Ninja now. This card is really cool. Or, oh, Gambler's Gloves or whatever. I think that's one of the cards I opened, and I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. Like, that's a nice, little random card that I could maybe try to play with or whatever. So the power level did seem to increase a tad, but at the same time, because it was also not a brand new experience, it felt comfortable jumping right into that, and I didn't have to be like, oh, whew, this is crazy and I don't understand what this means, because like I was overwhelmed. I'll lead into Monarch here. When I went to the pre-release event, I brought myself, I brought my wife, well, girlfriend at the time, and my friend Alex, who at the time, you know, did just played a lot of Magic, but had not, we none of us had really played Flesh and Blood. We sat down to play this event, and it was just gloss eyes right over, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I understand the basics of the game, because I, at least at that point in time, was fairly interested, and I knew that the mechanologist mechanics. But the two of them were kind of like, what the heck is going on? And it was because of the talents, it was because of, you know, having to read the bottom of the card. It became, and then the soul mechanic and the banishing, that increased because of the talent, that increased the complexity to a level that made it not as fun as I think if I would have hit a pre-release at Arcane Rising or Welcome to Wraith originally, which I did come back in the circling back where they did the Farewell to Welcome to Wraith events. I was able to attend some of those, so I felt like I got to go to a Welcome to Wraith event, even though it really wasn't a pre-release event. It was the farewell to it, but I feel like that would have been the same feeling I'd have had back then. So what was, you know,
I remember the Farewell to Wraith event. Yeah, I still have the Dorinthia deck that I'm pretty sure it's the Dorinthia deck that I drafted. It's still sleeved up in a box because nobody picked her, and I got all of her good cards.
I definitely...
At the end, I remember my one buddy was like, I hate drafted the Iron Song Determination, so you didn't get it. And I'm like, dude, I literally got all the good commons and rares. I have 6 Warriors Valors. I think I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Or 4 Warriors Valor, sorry. But still, yeah, it was good. But
So,
yeah, so do you want to move into Monarch then, or?
yeah, I would say let's talk about your experience with Monarch.
Well, I guess you were just talking about it. Yeah, so Monarch obviously was a huge step up in complexity. I loved Monarch. The first box I bought for Monarch was like $500. I buried it in my first ever Mr. Ribbits video because it was the whole Flesh and Blood is Dead meme. And then I pulled the Coldfell Valiant Dynamo out of that box.
Nice.
Which was pretty sweet. I fell in love with Prism. Was my first favorite hero. I played Dorinthia before then and really liked her, but like Prism was something else. I wasn't playing competitively, so I didn't have to deal with Chain at all. I didn't have to deal with that bullshit, even in the slightest. I just got to pummel my friends with Auras and Heralds. And I was very casual at the time, still playing a lot of Blitz, but it was... I mean, what's there to say? Like, Monarch is incredibly iconic in its own right. Some for the for the wrong reasons. You know, Monarch to 1K and then the crash and
yeah.
I mean, it's just such an iconic set. The first real like power leap of the game with Chain, even Prism to a degree, you know, very polarizing. But it's like the light and shadow. It set up the real like the war in Wraith right now, which is a big story plot. We've gone back to it, and you know the Tales heroes are involved with it too. So like it's a big story plot of the world, and I'm very excited to see where that concludes, because right now Vincent has kind of destroyed Solana for the most part. They're in like the most innermost part of the city right now.
You know, in Monarch, I will amend a statement I think I made when I was talking about the pre-release. Retrospectively looking back, even though I was a deer in headlights and so was the other 2 members of my party, because you were right, the complexity level stepped up. I feel like if I would have been taught Fab by a person that actually knew how to play Fab versus learning myself and theoretically probably not even knowing the rules correctly at that stage, I feel like coming into Monarch would have been a completely different feel at the LGS that I did, because that event was pretty special for the fact that at the time I thought there was like over 20 or 30 people, and to realize that was the 4th set of this game and that crowd was fairly that size. You know, when somebody pulled the cold foil, I think it was the library, you know, it was, everybody was going crazy, just like, everyone's like, he's shaking, and then he's gonna be like, how much is that worth? Oh, it's $1,000, you know, right? Everybody was very focused on the monetary component more so than this is a cool card. But like, I remember that because, you know, not a lot of cold foils came out of those right there. This is still Flesh and Blood 1.0 for those in the history, if you are looking at this in the you know, distant future, right? Welcome to Wraith, all the way up to, you know, we got one more set to chat about, really, or maybe 1.5 sets, depending on how you approach that. But, you know, Monarch, it was just a very unique set. It was one of the largest sets. I do remember trying to set collect that and looking at first edition and saying, oh my god, I got all the commons, I got all the rares, I got majority of the Majestics, and I'm like, I'm not going to chase all these cold foils because at the time they were stupid expensive, and they still, some of them kind of are. But like, I was able to trade out a couple of those, high value cold foils that I got into some other various stuff. Or I think I traded one for a very rare Pokemon card I've always been searching for, which is a Delta species Gyarados, which that was like $600 at the time. So theoretically, that thing has held its value. But now that Phantasmal Footsteps that I trade away is only like $125 for a cold foil. So really, I worked out on a better end of that stick. But like, it's just interesting to think that Monarch in general, if you look at it from all aspects, it was a game changing. It broke the mold. Then technically because of the Blitz decks, right? That was the first introduction of those Blitz decks that came out for Bolt and Chain, Levia, and Prism. So there's all those as well, which they had mentors, and I think that's something that was a unique aspect to those as well, which we haven't seen yet. But I think somebody in that 5-year stream talked about mentors coming back, so that'll be curious to see if maybe we get a hero that's a mentor or something, because there's a lot of lore around some of that. So
yeah, if they're gonna do mentors, I'd like to see the power. I mean, Minerva Temis was actually pretty good in the old Kasai deck. She was actually like, quite good, but I would like to see them buffed up a little bit, maybe, just because like I do think they're very interesting cards, and I would love to see them like made better. Because I think they're unique and they're also very slow, especially for a format as fast as Blitz. But they also said some changes are coming to Young Heroes and Blitz, so maybe they're going to try to like balance the format a little bit. I'm not sure. It might have implications on UPF. Then we're not entirely sure. But
that's something I'm curious about as well. I'm actively listening. Let's just say that I'm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what gets announced at Worlds, which I think is 2 weeks from now from today.
Yeah,
it's like
so
not
Osaka,
this weekend, but the next.
Yep, very very close. October, Halloween, I guess in the United States, that would be coming up. So just
I don't celebrate Halloween, so I will be watching.
Yeah. I'm not going to be giving out much candy or doing anything. There's no more kids in the neighborhood anymore, so it's not really.
I live in an apartment, so
yeah,
I don't have to worry about it at all.
Knock, knock, knock. Here's your candy. Here you go. Which I will say, there was a pre-release card or a promo card at one point that came out with. It was the pumpkins. That was really cool.
Like, the jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to see. Yeah, the Halloween and the Christmas stuff. But so I guess Tails next.
Yeah. Let's move on to Tails. Tails. Holy moly, Tails. Tails. Oh my gosh.
I got what? Let me see. Let me just count for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 or 9 documents for a Tails video essay that I was gonna make. Some of them upwards of 10 to 20 pages, so like tens of thousands of words altogether.
Wow.
So I have a lot to say about Tails. Broken set, 11 cards that had to be banned at some point in time in total up until this point. Some that are still banned in CC because they're too broken. Was developed at a time alongside Everfest where there was major lockdowns in New Zealand. I think they were done at about spring is when I deciphered, because that was when the lockdowns were at their most intense in New Zealand. I looked it up. Just went to Wikipedia to look at the timeline of lockdowns. Yeah. And just like Briar was broken when it came out, like actually broken. Her ability
they errated the hero ability. Yeah.
Ball Lightning, got Plunder Run banned, although that wasn't from it. They had to, get rid of Winter's Wail at one point. They had to they didn't get rid of it, but Lexi's weapon Voltaire was a problem. Rosetta Thorn is, weirdly enough, going back, everybody, Rosetta Thorn is strong. It's a very good weapon, and they obviously, you look at the Rotwood weapon. That thing is fucking terrible. It's so bad. It's a worse Nebula Blade, right? And then you look at Rosetta, it's the things we used to have. But it's honest to God, it's ended up being the least broken of all the weapons. Actually, I think Duskblade arguably maybe, but Duskblade, the problem with Duskblade is it's fine into aggro matchups. It will demolish any fatigue strategy, or any slower strategy. So, good luck Enigma unless you have Warmongers. But yeah, Tails was one hell of a set. You want to talk about complex pre-release? I think Tails was 3 times as complex as Monarch, because you had not only did you have all the fusion in that was confusing, and 3 classes, which was 1 less, but 3 elements, so it was basically the same. Instead of 2 talents, 4 classes, which is 6, it was 3 classes, 3 elements, which is 6. Dual elements, which was confusing. Elemental, I didn't know
specializations.
The elemental cards had different borders than the element cards, and you could look at the borders, but I didn't recognize that because it was so much at once. And so I'm trying to use Entwine Earth to because Weave Earth is an Earth card, but Entwine Earth is an element card. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, it was a hell of a set. very iconic because of just how broken it was. But like, man, fuck Channel Lake Frigid. If there's anything about that set that I can say, it's fuck Channel Lake Frigid, fuck Ice, terrible mechanic. Yarrow looks at least like it's a more fixed version, but I am not looking forward to facing some of those cards again.
My experience with Tails is completely different than yours, man. Like, maybe it's just because I didn't do as much degeneracy with that set. I will say that Ice sucks. Like, I did not enjoy Ice as a mech player because I think Oldhim just basically shut me down. I could not play the game, and that was between that and the next set we'll talk about. I went on hiatus from going to my armories for almost a solid year because it was just not fun for me to play my specific class with both that Ice meta with that, and then the lead into the next one, which I guess let me wrap up with my Tails experience. I remember going to a pre-release, I think, with that. I thought I'd have to go back and look at my gym account, but it did not impact me at all because I was like, oh, cool, new set. Is there a mech class? No, I don't care. And I basically, that was how I approached it, which I guess is okay in the game of Flesh and Blood if you really care about the class or the talent. But on the other side of the spectrum, I had to look at it from the, okay, I'm going to have to face these things. I have to understand a little bit of it. So, like, seeing the arrows with Lexi and seeing the ice and just, oh my god, it became, yeah, it became very odd very quickly. So,
very beautiful set, but
the artwork to this day, I still love sorting the cards. I even have an unlimited box behind me over here that I'm just leaving sealed because I managed to finally pull the Fabled from another random box I had. So I got the Corsham, which I might as well mention Landmarks because I think that was the first. No, because Monarch had a
library
landmark.
was.
So that was a beautiful another piece. That tree was just a fantastic looking
I had two
card.
cold foils.
Wow, that's awesome.
I pulled two, yeah, and I was like, oh, okay. I think I might have bought one maybe, and then I pulled. No, I think I pulled them both. I can't remember, but.
Well, and that leads us into the what I'm going to call last of the 1.0 block.
We move on
which
to
is
the GOAT.
Everfest or Ever Starvo, the only Starvo show, right? Like that's going to be it.
My man, I pulled a Starvo and a Grandeur, like the Marvel Starvo out of the same Everfest box.
Wow.
Everfest is one of my favorite sets. I remember when it came out, everybody shit on it.
When are the items going to be?
It was so bad. All the trinkets are bad, dude. I got like 120 plus cold foils every time. Like the Talisman of Cremation, I think it is. Like my buddy plays Vincent, and he's like, this actually might be good against the aggro decks because you can like play a banish card and then rip 2 cards out of their hand. So he's like, shit, I might need some cold foils. He's like, but they're like nobody has them. I'm like, buddy, I got like 5 extras on top of my playset. Like, come on. Yeah. So I gave it to I think they're like $10 a piece American. I was like, just get me a few packs of Rosetta and you can have them. I don't really care. But dude, there's so many powerful Majestics in Everfest. Like now looking back, everybody was like, oh, it's just like the Spectra Auras. But you can tell this set was like made in the same circumstances as Tails, where it was not tested properly. Because like Miraging Metamorph, you got Teklo Pounder, you've got Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, you've got Runeblood Incantation, or no, Revel in Runeblood, sorry, and Runeblood Incantation as a rare. Swarming Gloomveil, like there are so many good Majestics in this set. It is like, except for Ninja, I think Ninja is probably the one that sucks. I don't know. It's been a while since I've looked at Everfest, but I love Everfest. I like the goofiness of some of it, but I think the hype I think there was 2 things that went against it. One, the hype for the expansion, the Carnival slot, was then it ended up just being all the trinkets in that, and people thought it was going to be like, oh, alt art reprints and all these cool things. We all got swept up in that. It wasn't. It was way more disappointing than what we all thought. But then I think the other thing is it also, not long after it came out, there was the market crash of like most games it was like the 2021, crash, of the summer. And then like Everfest after this set really tanked hard. Because they printed a lot of it, but and there was even like the extended art cards and everything. I got like a Winds of Eternity that I pulled, some 100 wins. Like it's such, the In the Swings and the Blade Runners, or sorry, Slice and Dice and Blade Runner, and In the Swing. Like there's just so much good stuff. There's much good stuff. Genesis and Silver Palms. I got like 15 Silver Palms.
Oh, see, I need to get more Silver Palms. I got to talk to you about that because I think I need more for my wall of Silver Palms I'm working on. So
mine aren't for sale, unfortunately.
Okay.
I'm holding on to them for my collection. Oh, and the extended art Arcane Lantern, that's when we first got like the equipment that started to look like full art. That is like, there's so much good that came out of Everfest, and there's so much like so many cool iconic cards. We also, again, the Spectra Auras, broken as all hell. We got Arcanite. We saw the Arcanite Skullcap reprinted, which back then was a huge deal because it was like $200 right before Uprising. So
Very expensive.
Everfest is like, dude, but yeah, Starvo kind of destroying the meta. Guess what? I've never once played against Starvo.
Oh, see,
I was not playing
I got
Classic Instructor
rolled.
at the time.
I got rolled by Starvo. I got rolled by Oldhim so many times. I kind of just was like, yeah, that's why I took a pause. But honestly, Everfest. If I still go back and say, this is now we know is the line in the sand between Flesh and Blood 1.0 and 2.0. But even when the first edition was out with these, I look at this set and it kind of screams my peak interaction with collectability. That's what really kicked my collectability into High Drive because of, like you said, the cold foils, the Marvel before Marvels were no coined Marvels, with Starvo, and on top of that, the extended arts and just the feel of the cards because it covered every class. It was just intriguing to me. Also the fact that I think it was a very small set, only about, in this case, 198 cards from the Fabre, database here that I'm looking at. But it covered all the classes still. It actually included talents. It was kind of like, wow, this is the future of Flesh and Blood. This is where all the talents and stuff are going to be. We now know that that's not the way that direction went. But, at the time, that was why I was so involved with that set, liking it, wanting to buy more of it, is just because I was like, holy moly, this is just such an intriguing concept. And it added, frankly, a lot of cards that, as a mech player, I was just thrilled, way over the top for. So I really liked it, but at the same time, I could see why it was just kind of a giant, pain in the butt for other people. So.
It's just amazing because everybody's perspective, like back in the day, was like Everfest is a terrible set except for like Starvo, right? He was like, but people were so low on Everfest and its power level and that. But like as time's gone on, so many of the Majestics have proven to just be insane.
Oh yeah. And the thing is I feel like, and I don't have a way to really showcase this, but if I were to really put a timeline together, I feel like Everfest was the blueprint for the next 4 or 5 sets, and James just never told anybody. Because when you start looking at how these cards interrelate to the later sets that we're going to talk about, it feels like there are always cards in there that when we look back and point to those between that and a later set called Dynasty, it seems like those cards had blueprints for like ideas or deck concepts or things that they knew would pop off. But at the time, people were like, I don't understand why this exists. Kind of like right now, we don't know why United We Stand exists, other than it's supposed to be for maybe a UPF card. But sooner or later, the light will shine on that, I hope, and we'll figure it out. So, anything else on Everfest at the moment?
Goated set. It's amazing. I love Everfest. That's all I have to say. It's one of those sets that if a store has packs, I'll like buy them here and there just because it's fun to open.
Heck yeah.
And again, there's so much like if you're just talking
paper
value,
packs.
There's so many good. Yes, the first paper packs.
Paper packs. Got to mention that. Got to call that out.
Yeah.
That was...
All right, so we move on to the big boy set.
Well, I do want to
2.0.
I do want to mention History Pack 1. It's not tech. It is technically in the order of, I don't know. I sent you the Fabre link I'm looking at, by the way, just in case you're curious. So.
Oh, I haven't even.
But basically, History Pack 1 came out. That was just a whiteboard reprint of all the cards, so we'll leave it at that. I think it was still a pretty solid thing. It is mappable for the future for people that don't know. Mappable meaning that you get, I think it's a guaranteed 12 Majestics or Legendaries in a box. Either one Legendary, 11 Majestics, or 12 Majestics in total in the 36 count box. So you just got to know that and just trust who you're getting it from. Other than that, it's great. Easy access to stuff. It was also printed in other languages. I know there was a black border version of this that has the Marvel heroes. It's some crazy stuff that's out there. Those are excruciatingly rare to find nowadays, as far as not only the heroes but just the sealed boxes. So
yeah. So History Pack. I'll say this. Fine idea. I understand. I don't like History Pack. I think it's like getting it to other languages is fine, but the Japanese archive packs seem like LSS have changed their minds on how they want to do that. The archive packs are more targeted. You can make a few of smaller sets that people can get the specific things they need. History Pack is just, it's too many packs, too many cards, and just like, it's just, I don't know. I just don't like it. It's like, just get, like, I prefer the smaller, like, reprint set kind of thing. And if this is our reprint set too, like, we were supposed to get History Pack 2 this year. When they released it, they said English is going to get it every 2 years, but we didn't get History Pack 2. Now, I think 2 reasons. One, the secondary market didn't really need it because Monarch Tales and Everfest aren't, like, they're still pretty easy to find. Like, the cards aren't, like, Everfest is getting a little iffy, but Monarch and Tales, there was so much first ed and unlimited that, like, we didn't really need it.
Yeah.
But I think I'm hoping in the future that History Pack is just done. personally, and that maybe we could just get archive packs or like reprint specific sets, because that's how I prefer it. History pack is just like a whatever thing. But just getting it to other languages, I think it did its job. I thank you, history pack. Now go away.
Fair enough. I won't mention classic battles too much. I like the product. Not a lot of people do, but that was technically the next one that was on here. That's just a 2-player starter.
I think because I remember talking to the store organizer Francesca at Canadian Nats, and she had mentioned that the reason they printed so few of the armory decks at the start, like they were limited, is because they didn't want another classic battle situation where they just sat on shelves. But it's like, man, there's a huge difference between really well made classic constructed precons and these like first strike blitz decks, because that's basically what the classic battles were. They literally had like weaker, worse versions of cards, like the Bone Club or whatever. It's just a worse romping club. Right, you've got the there was a sharpened steel in the Dorinthia deck, but it costs 1, and it's like if you like this deck is just, and it's fine that they were dumbed down versions of the regular cards, but like, yeah, of course it's going to sit on shelves.
It
like,
was
yeah,
innovative in its own unique way, but it wasn't, I think, the home run they were hoping for.
It was honestly, I see it as one of those products that like they could totally bring back. Just like you got to ramp it up and like make it a little bit more, desirable. And even James said when they got the product back, it wasn't what they were, like the product itself and like the little lore book wasn't what they thought they were getting when they ordered it. So like you think about it, they have to communicate to a printing company for all this stuff. Cardamundi was the ones who put the product itself together. That stuff was like fine, but the problem I have with that too, the lore book, is 2 things. One, it's just the lore that's on the website, which is fine, but what it should have been, in the bigger issue, it should have been a rule book with 1 page that gave some of the lore and said go to the website to find it. Instead, they did the lore that was just articles on the website and said on 1 little page, go to the website to learn how to play. And it's like, you got this backwards. It should have been flipped. This should have been a learn how to play, like a how to play guide, and it should have linked to the website for the lore. But that's my little rant on classic battles. It's fine. I don't know if they're going to do it again anytime soon. It's whatever. Nobody cares about Blitz anymore. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, you got CC precons. They're doing great. Just keep iterating on those.
Well, now we're going to fast forward into Flesh and Blood 2.0, where they took that crank and they went all the way to 11, because that was where we got next, man. Uprising was a whole new level of hype, right? Like,
dude, there's dragons in this set,
and
they did Marvels. Like, they finally made Marvel's dragons. I loved Dromai at the start. She's my least favorite illusionist, but I still love the dragons. Like, I don't know, it's weird. I don't really care for all the sand theme and all that, like all the brown that some of the stuff has, but the dragons themselves are so fucking cool. I do love Dromai, she's like probably my least favorite of all the illusionists. Which still means I still really like her, but then Phi was bullshit at the start, and then he just got nerfed into oblivion, and now he doesn't even exist, so who cares? And Icelander, I mean, Michael Hamilton, that was an impressive thing he did with the deck. She was a terrible thing for the game. Fuck Icelander, fuck Ice. I hate everything about it. Also, my least favorite card in the game is in this set. You want to guess what it is? Oh, no. No, it's an illusionist card. It's Ghostly Touch.
The legendary.
The illusionist legendary arms, because you had to throw your dragons at the old him players. They would have to pop your dragons. You would get a counter. You would have to hold 2 resource open until you got an energy potion, so that you can then play the energy potion to get around exposed to the elements in case they were playing it. Otherwise, they could get rid of your Ghostly Touch. Then you had to either use the Mage Master Boots or a Time Snap potion to play a Passing Mirage to attack with the Ghostly Touch in the late game to actually kill them without Phantasm. There were a million hoops you had to jump through to get this card to work, and I fucking hate it. And that's saying something, because Frightmare also came out in this set, and I despise this art. It's great for what it is. I hate what it is. I hate the gore horror stuff. It's gross. The intestines on the bottom of this horse horror thing is disgusting. Fuck both these cards. Everything else about Uprising, 10 out of 10. Perfect masterpiece, but fuck those 2 cards, especially Ghostly Touch. The art's cool. I hate the million hoops you got to jump through. There's my rant.
Tell me how you really feel. Let me tell you how you feel.
Providence, still an amazing helm. Still really cool. Well, we got the Vipox. We got like the nod towards Arachne coming in the next set. That was pretty cool too. So
yeah. Now for me, I looked at this set and I was like, man, there's not a lot that I would enjoy, but I go back to the WTR where I liked at least Ninja, and I said, okay, let's look at something else. So this is where I kind of dual classed, and I went hey, I was originally a mech, and now I'm looking at this from, okay, how can I play ninja, which is where Phi came in. So
Mhm.
I really like the Phoenix Flame kind of component to this, but you were right. It was a very different style of gameplay from, let's say, what I was traditionally used to with that. And the the opening experience in this was very interesting. And even when the wife was opening up some of these products, it was like, you had that kind of spoilery thing where if you did the card trick to flip to the bottom, you'd see your double sided marble or whatever. So that was it's neat, but it's also one of those things you just have to know that there can be these interesting hits. We didn't know that at the time, so like we kind of spoiled ourselves a little bit. And I was like, well, that's cool. Like just getting to see some of these in real life.
Mhm.
I think the set was hands down what needed to change in Fab. I was concerned though because from a player of older games like Mage Knight, which is a HeroClix style miniatures game, they went through a 1.0 2.0 change, and the 2.0 change literally killed their game. Like it made all 1.0 cards completely out the door, kick it to the curb, and 2.0 was its own separate thing. They really didn't work well together. Flesh and Blood, from what we can tell, based on the fact that we're on set 13, 14, 15-ish, 15 now, they navigated that transition, and it sounds like they've been fairly successful, and those old cards are still relevant, harkening back to WTR and Everfest cards still being very relevant, and
Mhm.
now with some stuff coming out, Tails cards coming back, it's intriguing that I originally was very worried that this would be okay, maybe there's going to be two bubbles of the game. Maybe there's going to be a 1.0 crew and a 2.0 crew, and it didn't happen. It did not pan out that way. So it's fantastic that did not occur. So
Well, I think when they said 2.0, it was more about like design philosophy and how they were approaching cards. Like I think it was more like, oh, we've like kind of like how James recently with the ban list updated their design philosophies. You could
sure,
call that like Fab 3.0, right? Like it's just where they're kind of adapting to the newer times and realizing like, oh, this old way that we used to design cards no longer works because we're now starting to see how it can easily break newer stuff. So
yep,
we're going to try to avoid those pitfalls and stuff like that. I think Flesh and Blood, like, yeah, it stayed true to its form. And it didn't like power creep the game. In fact, it actually powered down after Uprising, starting with Dynasty.
makes
So,
sense. So well,
do we want to move on to that?
yeah, I was gonna say anything else after Uprising. They had Blitz decks. I'll at least call that out. They had those again, just as an extra product that was there.
Honestly, the
And
Blitz decks are just like whatever.
yeah,
It's such
so
a whatever product now.
let's move on to Dynasty, which I was super hyped for this set, let me tell you, because I was like, not only did we get a brand new class released in an entire product that was not a mainline draftable set with the Assassin class, but they had Mechanologist cards in it again. Yeah! Sorry, that's you'll see my theme. I'm very happy about that.
Mhm. Dynasty has to be one of my least favorite sets.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it
Please
is.
elaborate.
So I can admire that they really tried to expand a lot of the stuff about the set, but I will say, and I can appreciate them trying like these black bordered marvels and everything. I'm not a
Those
huge
look
fan of them.
beautiful. To me,
I'm
I
not
think they look great.
Yeah, I think they're fine, but I guess my worry at the time was that they were going to keep trying to make a bunch of different like Marvel types, whereas now like they do it here and there, but it really seems like the full art are the ones that they're sticking to, which is cool. But
Yeah.
like we got like the Dromai dusts, and they were like kind of a whatever thing at the time. I guess they're kind of usable now. And as I'm going through, there are more usable cards than I thought, and they're starting like Buckle now seems like it might be finally good. Some cards have come out like the Tiger stuff didn't really end up being much played, but now it is in Zen. The Warrior stuff is whatever. The mech stuff, Pulse Wave Harpoon. I remember at the time, Pulse Wave Harpoon was like the only good card in Dynasty. It was like the only thing played.
Rock,
Arachne
man.
was
Rock was it.
still not even a real hero. But some of the assassin stuff, to be fair, Black Tech Whisperers and Leave No Witnesses especially are really good. Shred's really good. Rangers still weren't a real class, so we can skip over those. Rune Blades, all this, like, if you've pitched an attack and a non-attack stuff, is interesting, but it's like, it's terrible to play. It's just not, like, good. Looming Doom is finally a card that you can use, I guess.
I think.
Yeah,
I think.
it's just,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, Dynasty is just, like, it's an interesting set, but there's so much of it that's just kind of like, you kind of just shrug your shoulders at. You're like, yep, that's a card that exists.
Here's where my thought on this is. They did introduce the royal talent in this set, which is where the Emperor came from, and I think one of the crazy things to me was I was thinking there'd be a different Fable. This is the first instance of them using the Fable slot to reprint something that was, in this case, Command and Conquer, a more prestigious card.
Strike next.
Yeah, and it's like I think that was kind of interesting. But one of the pieces that I still really reason I'm very drawn to Dynasty is Construct Nitro Mechanoid. I absolutely fell in love with this card, and
That card is really cool.
honestly, I think that's one of my personal favorite memories of Flesh and Blood throughout this journey is being able to go to Baltimore, play in that UPF event, and actually be able to pull off getting that there, which I'm sure I could have been killed multiple times. So I'm glad the group let me do it. Thank you to whoever was in that pod. So like that was one of my more favorite components to that. But like in general, there was a lot of firsts, but I think there was also some missteps here. I don't want to give them full credit on this because a lot of people, especially looking at the Emperor, right? There was the rainbow foil version, there was the cold foil version, and there was the extremely hard chase version. So while today, and I think even the Emperor today is only like $2 or $3 or something ridiculous like that. There's the cold foil variation of it, and there's that. So I think that's where they learn their lesson later for some of the stuff we're going to be able to see in these later sets with the extended arts and the being able to the treatments, right? Because I think that was such a kind of a, well, why does this exist? Because there's like a middle child that nobody cares about. And I think that this was a learning step to be able to get them to these later sets, which I think is kind of maybe a good transition point to, we'll talk about Outsiders. And we will skip History Pack 2 because really that doesn't exist at this point for all intents and purposes. So.
I have opened History Pack 2 actually because I live in Ontario, so our store owner got some from Quebec because they speak French, so they got some of the French stuff. So I have some French History Pack cards. That's about all I can say. I've got an Arclay Sentinel.
I was corrected that it does exist, by the way, because yes, you are right, it's out there, but I guess for the U.S. it really doesn't exist. I haven't been able to grab it. I can go buy some, like you said, I think French, but I need to probably just get a sealed box of it just to sit as part of my sealed box collection to have for one on every shelf. But yeah, anyways, so Outsiders.
I don't think the English exists.
No, I don't think there is in English. I think it's only other.
Or if they have it, it's like what they did with Everfest Unlimited. It's in a warehouse and they'll destroy it when they were like, okay, we don't need this.
Or it's already been incinerated and we just don't know about it.
Yeah. So are we gonna go to Outsiders now?
Outsiders.
My least favorite set.
This is the one that I had.
Controversial.
Yeah, I do not like this set at all.
I don't either. I like cut down to size and humble.
I had negative experiences with this set.
It was just like, honestly, I think this set was like, it's funny because I understand that some people absolutely love this set, and I get it, but like, there's a few things. First off, and this is just how it goes. This isn't even like a critique of it. I just don't care about any of these classes. That's like the big thing. There's nothing here really that appeals to me, right? So that's fine. It doesn't have to. I'm not a fan of the art. The art, obviously all these artists are very talented. I just don't like this kind of art. It's not my thing. I like the art of like Tails and Rosetta and Mistveil and Monarch. Like I like the bright fantasy colors, beautiful stuff. So this is the exact opposite, which like, it's good that it exists. I'm very happy it exists in the game. It's just like the exact opposite of what I personally like. The Marvels, beautiful pieces of art, but I don't like them as cards because they're incredibly difficult to read, and you have to basically take it every single time and go, what one is this one? Like, you have to like double check the art because they're so hard to understand. But as like art pieces, unbelievably beautiful. The Marvels of this set are gorgeous, but I just don't like it. It's a gross set. Even some of the like a lot of the generics or whatever. Gore belching is cool. I'll give it that, but like, it's just a whatever set for me. I'm just really not a fan of it.
Sorry, my dog was deciding to, I don't know, sounded like they were doing something they shouldn't be doing.
Oh, you're good. Oh, and like the Pox tokens in that, oh my god, they're so annoying.
So
not even like
Outsiders, man. I have a love-hate relationship with this set, mostly because I went probably a little harder than I should have on this, and it really, like the legendaries and stuff, didn't really assist with cheap. At the time. So yeah. And now I will say the trunk of sunken treasure, the trench of sunken treasure. Jesus, that
such
card.
Good art.
That is my absolute favorite art from this entire set. Not to point any of the codex or anything, but like I don't know, that to me I was like pirates. That's going to be a thing, and ever since then I've been so excited for that art. But I feel like you're right, because in my opinion, because it's a class-based game, this set Outsiders had nothing to bring to me as a player, really. And that is also because this is pre-introduction of something that'll come up in, I think it's Dusk Till Dawn, which is the expansion slot. Because
I believe so. Let me scroll down. I got all of them open.
and that's kind of one of the things that where Outsiders, while it is good in its own bubble for, I guess it did. I mean, it had some reprints of the original heroes here, which would be Azalea, Benji, and I
It
guess
also broke the
Katsu.
meta just because of Lexi.
Oh, really? I guess I don't really.
Yeah, Lexi old him, and then when he left, Lexi took over because of Premeditate and Codex of Frailty, and then all the new arrows.
Ah. Well, I have
You
nothing.
don't remember
further...
the Lexi meta?
I like I said, I kind of I dipped out. Well, no, I would have come back in Uprising, but I don't think I played as many armories. I don't really get to go to as many armies as I'd like.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of that balancing act. But I do remember people talking about Ice was horrible. So, but then she Living Legend, and I didn't have to worry about it. So that's when I came back.
Yeah, it was like a fuseless Lexi. She could go wide, leave you with like 8 tokens, and just decimate it, and could do that over and over. She was like way too consistent because Voltaire was busted. The moment she got enough arrows and like enough natural go again, Voltaire turns out was a really gross card. But hey, it's cool. We're done now. I will say, if there's one thing I can give about the art, Amplifying Arrow is my favorite art in the set. Ramzardi Putro is one of my favorite artists in this game. Their work is amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. It's the only like pretty card in the set. I also like the art on Knives Out. It's like the guy in the window with all the daggers in his fingers, and then he's got the red eyes. It's just the glowing red. It's no, that's Flick Knives. Knives Out is he's like sitting in the windowsill like this, and he's got the red like lights for his eyes. I do like that art. I've got a foil of it that I'm playing in a Ira deck. So
I just reminded me when you said artist, by the way, Mark Poole was at, I think, the indie event because there something was here. I managed to get the artist proof of one of the quivers, because this was also the introduction of where quivers came in, if I recall. So that was a new slot type. So there's some historical relevance in the set by showing that they are willing to expand the options for cards. So there, I mean, don't want to knock the set too bad, but like that, there were some interesting pieces of it. It was not for my personal cup of tea. So moving on to Dusk Till Dawn. That is an expansion slot set, and that had a whole world of interesting.
Dusk Till Dawn, man, I want to like this set more than I do, but it's just not a good set. It's
Did
just
you get one of the
bad.
artist proof
like
cards?
Pardon?
Did you get one of the artist proof cards?
I did not know. So those were cool. I know some people shit on them, but I'm like, that's just a cool little include. It doesn't have to be this big thing. I like the Fable Light of Soul. I have one. It's good. Prism, once she became a real hero after Heavy Hitters, was kind of fun, but just like, I didn't enjoy her as much as the OG Prism. The Heralds or the Angels are really gorgeous. But one issue with them is that you've always got them on the Figment side, and like half the time you're flipping them, it's just to prevent 4 damage. So you're like, I'm not even going to turn this around, like pull it out, flip it, and put it back in the sleeve. Gorgeous cards, but like when you open this set, 99% of what you pull is just disappointing. Like, even for the Majestics, it's like, okay, you get the Prism ones, but like they're fine, the Heralds are fine, but like the Bolton Majestics are disappointing to pull. The like United We Stand, Lumina Lance. I love Lumina Lance as like a card art and the foil and that and design, but it's like nobody plays it. Later Rest is one of the nicest arts in the game. I fucking love this art so much, but like no, it's not usable. Same with Cleansing Light, like gorgeous, but nobody wants it. I remember the Armory promos was fucking Break of Dawn around that time. Like, what the fuck is this doing as an Armory promo? It's terrible card. Like, Spoiled Skull's cool, and Leviah got, like, Slithering Shadowpeed, but apparently it's not even playable now. But, like, just, there's, like, so few. Vincent wasn't even a real hero at the time. Like, it's just, even now, like, okay, Leviah Redeem's cool. I pulled a Marvel. Gotta give it that. That was awesome. But, like,
you
most
got a
of
Marvel
this set...
that. Sweet.
I didn't even know it existed. I pulled it. I was like, oh, Marvel Leviah. My buddy was like, dude, that's like $1,000. I was like, oh, shit. But just, like... I don't know. Dyadic Carapace came in here. That was cool. That was in, like, the expansion-esque slot. But, like, this set was... Meeps. Meeps is the coolest thing we got. And then Warmongers. But I think it tells you about this set when Warmongers is... It's the same as Outsiders. There's the sets where there's, like, nothing else that's overly desirable. There's, like, the few Majestics that are worth something are, like, $80 because it's, like, the only value in the set. And nobody cracked it because there's nothing else really to pull. But I guess Poison the Well now. Censor's good. Hold the Line. Like, it came with some good cards. But most of it, like, I barely even remember half these cards exist. That's how like little I know about them and like I care about them. Like, and did it feel like to you when you were opening this that like half of this felt like it was supposed to be a draft? Like it felt like this was supposed to be a draft set, but it wasn't.
It
Like,
it did look like there was the fundamentals of a draft set in this, but I don't know why they made it expansion unless they opted to, because I think the War of the Monarch is supposed to be a 3-part series, and I think maybe this was their way to release some support for heroes they needed to release support for, and then theoretically now in 2026, now that we officially know that, right, we're going to get the 3rd part, which may have some other aha things that would look like maybe they were tied into this set, possibly, or maybe not. I mean, but that's just a speculation at this point, so. I don't really have too much to say on Dusted Dawn other than it was an interesting set. I do like the packs. I like the art on the packs. Again, not my cup of tea as far as, you know, classes that were in there. But, again, I'm going to focus on the expansion slot cards, which really made this become more interesting to me because now that the expansion class cards are there, that allows somebody like myself to say, oh, okay, I still need that particular card, right? And aren't they in this set? Yeah, there are expansion class slots. No, there aren't. Am I crazy? I'm crazy, aren't I? Aren't there expansion class? Yeah, well, there's
what in
Stars.
Dust Till Dawn?
Yeah, Starstruck. There are expansion class slots.
It was like a
Cards,
weird
Earth.
thing for this set though, like because it was also like less packs or cards per pack. It was yeah, I think it was an expansion slot, but I don't know if it was called that at the time. I can't remember, but there's like a lot more, right? There's a little bit of warrior stuff, and that's not in, but like the Starstruck and the few Brute. Well, Brute was part of the set, so it was really just like the. Yeah, I don't know if they called it expansion slot until Bright Lights. I think that's when they really coined the name. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't until Bright Lights that they're like, oh, this is like a
that's probably
new slot.
correct. So I mean,
Because this was a supplemental set, so it was a little different.
That's true. So do you want to talk about Round the Table at all?
Sorry. I was really high on Round the Table when it came out. I was really excited for it. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't really play UPF anymore. I play my own version of these formats. We either use 60 card decks. We don't play with the left and right rules. We actually have now moved on to Singleton. I've been working on making that a format and like doing a video on it at some point in the future. But
we're working on something similar. Nice, yeah.
It's a lot better than you think. It actually works, and it's a lot. It feels like Commander, but Flesh and Blood with the way you're deck building, and it's so awesome.
We should talk more about that later.
Around the Table, man, I wanted to like it, but the more as time's gone on, it's like it just feels like their solution to this format being like kind of broken with the way that decks are built. I mean, first off, 40 cards is terrible because you're going to fatigue all the time. Like it's just 60 cards is better, but I understand why they changed it. But like the Professor's a little goofy, Melody's a little goofy, Brevins, like they're kind of those gimmicky heroes, and it's like as time's gone on, I've kind of realized I'm sure there's some people's favorites, but it's like I want to play like a real hero and just play it in a jankier format. Like playing Florian in these types of formats, dude, I get to sit here and just like I'm playing Magic. I'm like I'm playing an aura to build up rune chance. I'm gonna build up some more rune chance, and then I'm gonna throw a huge attack and a bunch of damage. And you can do that in this format like really well. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. I just didn't like that the decks were all together. I didn't like that it feels very goofy, and I get that there's like ways to win, and like it's not like it's terrible, but like Melody just sits there, all these actions that are just like no go again. It's just give everybody something. That's my turn. Give everybody something. That's my turn. It's like, I mean, okay, but like, I don't know. I don't think the solution to this format was play goofy, janky decks. It's like the format, I think, needs to be a goofy, janky format, and then people can build strong decks within that, like, parameters. But that's why I think Singleton works so well.
Sure.
Because sometimes your deck can't be hyper consistent when, you know, with like 3 Swarming Gloomveils and 3 Revel and Runebloods as Viscerai, because you can only run one of each.
Makes sense.
But that's my thoughts on Round.
Yeah, Round was just interesting in general just because I like UPF. I hope that we'll see some sort of version of support for that game in the future. I don't know in what regard, right? But
yeah, I'd like to see more. I think it brings some good stuff to the table. Like Apocalypse Automaton, that card fucking awesome in multiplayer. That card's great. I love it.
But again, you'll notice that I think it's at least good because, again, it helped my class Mechanologist. So, like, I'm jaded. Just like the next set we're going to talk about is my baby. It's Bright Lights. Everybody hates it, but you know what? It's a mech set, and all the cool stuff from mech exists. So, what do you think of Bright Lights?
Bright Lights was for me probably one of the bigger like flash in the pan kind of like, oh, this is really cool, and I instantly got bored like so quickly. I tried all three heroes. I just didn't really like any of them, but I love like the Evo circuit, like the Atom Breakers, the breaker ones that go with the hyperdrivers. Those
Hmm.
things look sick. I love the Evo theme just in general. So, like the all the big tanks like the Annihilator Engine, Terminator Tank, War Machine, like Pulse Wave Protocol. All those cards are cool. Tekla is way too slow, but in multiplayer he's kind of fun because you can play a little bit slower and just build up and throw them. I did like Dash IO, but not enough to keep playing her. But I think the thing I like most about Bright Lights is, well, first off, this is the first true expansion slot,
Sure,
which,
yep.
I mean, already dead. I got a couple of those and was able to sell them. Phantom Tide Maw, Tome of Imperial Flame, the Tunic, which, I think James himself actually said later that he wishes they didn't do Tunic in the set because it didn't really need the reprint that badly, but
Oh,
I think it was
really?
fine.
Okay, interesting. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think LSS, like, people might not like this. We're far enough in that, like, probably the whiny assholes of Twitter aren't definitely not watching at this point. Um, LSS have made it pretty clear they want their game to be a little bit more premium, that they don't want everything to be dirt cheap. They want cards to have value and players to have a buy-in, but also like get rewarded for that buy-in in the long term, and that's kind of the way they want to run their game, and personally, I like that. So I don't mind that James is like, yeah, we reprinted Tunic too quickly maybe after it was already, and I think it was what he said is they did Tunic and Tekla Foundry Heart, and he's like, I wish we chose one or the other and didn't do both. I think was actually the statement, sorry. But like, they don't want to reprint everything into the ground. If there's a high buy-in, they don't want to like screw everybody over who bought it, right?
Well, it's not like
They
gonna be
want
what
you to get
happened with
years of
Commander
use.
and banning the, Jeweled Lotus and
There's a
the.
lot of problems when you ban people's wallets because it's almost like people want a holy grail card to chase after. It's almost like that's a good thing for games, but I could be crazy. Okay, so what
I
do you
just.
think? You have more to say about this than I do. What do you think about
Oh
Bright
man, I could
Lights?
probably write a thesis on this. So I think the fact that we got some lore. One, it was nice to actually see that there was some lore articles that came out with this. Then weirdly enough, right after it, I think that's when the lore hiatus kind of the darkening of the lore book, the closure happened. Like there wasn't a lot of lore for a while. But like at least in here we got some backstory on Dash IO and how that melded with the uh, I guess for lack of a better word, Data Doll, and then you got Tech Leviathan, and you got Max. So there were some interesting components to that. I love the modularity component for the whole adaptive plating, and then the kind of subsequent stuff there. The Fable with the Master Cog was cute, but like it also wasn't like in my opinion what I really wanted to see. I was hoping to see like Metrics, the site, like that would have been so much more cool in my opinion. I'd have bought that artwork, just hands down, no questions asked. Twin Drive was super cool. I know it's $45. Holy crap! But it has two boosts on it, so that's always been a thing, right? Like how can you get maximum velocity off? Apparently that was the solution to that. Just in general, I think it was interesting to see some of the stuff. Evos were kind of an interesting concept, and I'm sure that the payoff to doing the whole Mechlovossen kind of thing, there's got to be a lot of downsides to it. So the only way to make that work is basically give you a bunch of crap in your deck that does almost nothing. But then if you manage to pull it off with whatever reason, the other person is basically just, might as well sign out and say you're
Oh, dude.
done.
The Mecropotent is such a fucking cool card. That Marvel is so cool.
It's beautiful.
Hmm.
The Marvel's
Yeah.
$900 too.
Yeah, and hey, to be fair, the set is becoming better and better as the days go on, especially with Mech actually being a real thing now with the Dash IO deck, and I am looking forward to selling some cards to people who are trying to build the deck.
I was lucky enough to. I'll shout out. I know I'm way too far in this video, but I drove 45 minutes down to get to a place called Grandmaster Games, and they actually had a Dash IO deck, so I was managed to get one. Thank God. That took forever to figure out because that was one of those things where I was like, I didn't think I was gonna be able to find one, and I did. So, woot! That checked off the list. But man, yeah. In general, the expansion slot set was good. Nice to see a Tunic. I've still not seen a Tunic from this set. Meaning that I don't know how many of them are out there, but not something I see a lot of. So.
I know one guy who got one. I picked it up for him at Canadian Nats, but it looks like the Krunic with just a different set symbol at the bottom. That's it.
Well, we're going to move on to Heavy Hitters. Another, in my opinion, super awesome set, mostly because it was technically focused on UPF, which is something I know I enjoy. But it also brought back several name brand heroes, maybe. I don't know. Like it just. What do you think? What's heavy hitters?
So I think leading up to Heavy Hitters too, we were in that period of powering down for the game, and Bright Lights was still kind of continuing that.
Okay.
Heavy Hitters was the first set that had come out in a while because we had Dynasty, Outsiders, Dusk Till Dawn, and Bright Lights. 4 sets. It's over a year of just kind of underpowered stuff. Like there were some individually powerful cards, but a lot of the Tails heroes were still dominant. Like Briar finally,
Sure.
old him, Alexi finally left, Icelander finally left, but then we kick off with Heavy Hitters in 2024. This was the set that started the year. I am biased because I got to spoil my first ever legendary, so that was dope as hell. But it was also, it was just like, it was finally a powerful set with like relevant legendaries, good heroes that were actually like meta relevant until Mistful came out, but that's the next set we'll talk about. I was really hyped about Kasai. Unfortunately, this is also the time that I learned I just don't really like Warrior anymore. I'm not as big of a fan of them as I used to be because I really like their playstyle compared to like Rune Blades and Illusionists is just kind of boring. Like it's not that I don't enjoy playing them, but I just don't have the passion that I used to. I don't love them as much as I used to. But just like all the dual stuff, KO was a really good hero. You got the like the discard make the might tokens. Like just the design of this set was so interesting and was so unique, and it was like the power and just the theme and everything was really cool. I thought Heavy Hitters was a really really good set. It's not one of my absolute favorites, but it's up there. And when you talk about the quality of a set, it's very high up there in my opinion. I think it's really really good.
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing negative to say about heavy hitters from the experience of, basically being able to go in and again from a Oonga Boonga, I think that's your word. I'm stealing one of your phrases there, but from an Oonga Boonga person just coming in and saying, I like Mechanologist and I know how to play Ninja, but being able to come in and saying, okay, I'm going to learn, Brute, and be able to do a little bit there, but I could also have played a little bit of Warrior and Guardian, so we had some like, Kasai. It had a little bit of everything, and I liked Victor. I thought that was cute. I still thought he was actually a horse to begin with, or somebody convinced me he was a horse. I don't know how that happened, but like it was a funny kind of holistic kind of thing. But I do like the set design. I think that there were a decent number of oddities that made the set more interactive because of the tokens and the wagering. I think the wagering was kind of an interesting concept. This was also a scenario where they reprinted several cards, like Wild Ride was from Everfest, and some of the other cards in here, I believe. Let's see here. Pack Hunt was a reprint. Bear Fangs was a reprint. Assault and Battery, I think, was a reprint. So, like, they didn't necessarily reinvent too many cards. They added more, but they also were willing to. This showed me that they were willing to bring cards from the past forward, meaning that they're not going to have 7 cards like the joke was in Part the Misfit, or maybe it was Rosetta, that are all like Zap or something, because they all did the same. So that showed me that there was some willingness to go back to old card styles. Other than that, I think it was a great set. The Fabled probably left a little bit to be desired in my opinion, but it is flavorful for what it is. I, like you said, you have your own rules for UPF. I automatically always had this rule as a you could attack anybody, and when I played UPF anyways.
It's just the rule is terrible. Only attacking left and right. It makes things objectively worse in UPF because then you have this thing where like 2 players just all attack this guy, so this guy defends and he's at like 6 life. Basically pass his turn. The other guy's like, well, I'll attack the other guy. He's at like 5 life and has no cards and has to like block out. And then these 2 players are at like 15 each, and they're like, I wish I could attack you, but I can't. It's just terrible. And writing it into the cards ruined the format. I've just like given up on UPF personally. I'm just doing my own thing right now because I'm like, you know what? I'll develop my own format. I'll make videos about it in the future maybe, and I'll make at least one to see if anybody catches interest and see if I can start my own thing because I basically my goal is to essentially try and bring Commander to this
Yeah,
game if I can.
you oddly enough, you and several other people, I think even me myself and some other folks I've chatted with in Discord, all seem to have a very similar-ish idea, but maybe different approaches we're taking to the same concept is just finding a way to have fun. And I do think, like you said, I think Singleton's a great concept. I've played around with it myself.
It works. I'm not gonna. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have a Singleton Florian and a Singleton Ira deck here right now. Like it genuinely, you would be surprised. I also made Tech Lavasin. they work. Like, okay, you can only run some. So it's like, okay, well, you got Fate Foreseen and Rootbound Carapace, a Canopy Shelter, Reduced to Rune Chant, like as defensive cards. You know, your Sync Belows, you got E-Strikes, and Channel Mount Heroic, and Channel the Millennium Tree. But, like, because you can only run one of things, I've got Sonata Galaxia in here, and usually I'm just using it to search for something like Blessings of the Occult, which just hits the field, and then I wait for the next turn to make 3 Rune Chants. But, you know, it's crazy. Sorry, this is like has me really excited. It's crazy, but this works. It actually works, and I'm like, man, this feels like I'm building commander decks and playing old commander decks, but with a different game and a different game system.
Still
But
trying to hit the 100 card metric, or because I thought about increasing the card
right
size.
now I'm on 60, and I think 60 is fine. I think the card pool is just not deep enough to go past that, but I think 40 is too little. I think 60 is the sweet spot. I'm willing to go
so you
up
don't
in the
fatigue
future,
out
but
or whatever.
I think 60 is fine for this format. It doesn't have to be the exact same as Commander, right? Because you think about Commander, they also have to fit in lands, whereas we don't have to do that as much.
Yep, the
here.
resources are built right in. Yeah, exactly. Yep, yeah.
So for me, but yeah, like one thing I'll say about going back to heavy hitters for a second, one thing I really appreciate about this set, it's basically Outsiders if Outsiders was actually appealing, because it's got the dual class split thing, it does the token thing, but instead of Outsiders was very much like the game plan of Outsiders was to disrupt the opponent, whether it was like Katsu trying to go wide and hit them with the Dishonor, or Azalea with the Riptide with the traps and arrows, all the tokens that messed up the opponent. It was a very like, I'm gonna screw your strategy up type set. Heavy hitters is more like, you do what you want, my attack is bigger. I'm going to do more damage than you. I'm going to make proactive tokens to help my game plan. So it's like you still got to do your thing, but you had to deal with the onslaught. Personally, it's less annoying to me.
No, so you know how Michael Hamilton and Icelander used Wounding Bull to basically make that hero? This set introduced the keyword universal, which Wage Gold has as an example. And because it's Wall in any zone, it's the same class as your hero. Technically, that's a Mechanologist card. So really, I could almost run stuff like this that may or may not be useful to other people, but like I could look at this like, hey, I could boost this generic card away, or I could still use it for some other stuff. I think that there are some introductions of some keywords in this. Like you said, the dual class is fantastic. And this being a true dual class, because the dual class was done, I think, in 3 different ways so far. You had you have to be like in Rosetta, which we'll get to in a bit, you have to be the class and the talent. This was like in Outsiders, it was an either or, and then in Heavy Hitters there was like it was this slash the other, I think isn't it what it was?
That's actually the same as how Outsiders did it. There was like Ninja / Ranger. And,
okay, so this is Brute / Guardian.
Actually, I don't think there was Ninja and Ranger. It was just Assassin and Ninja and Assassin and Ranger.
Yeah,
This one paired Warrior and Brute and Warrior and Guardian, and then Guardian and Brute as well. Like all 3 share, whereas
it just shows more evolution in the ability to go outside of the typical box and say that I want this in the card game, but it's going to affect these 2 classes, but then it won't affect these other classes, but it could have an interesting effect that would slot into those. I like it. So with that, we'll move on from Heavy Hitters and go into Part the Mistveil, which came out in May of 2024, so relatively recent. This was the introduction into Japan, and this had a lot of stuff. A new talent came out, Mystic.
This is probably my favorite set in the game, but it's really close with Rosetta. And the only reason I say that, so Mistveil is more fun to open. I love the Chi. I love Enigma. I love the Weakest Link. I love the art. I love Battlefront Bastion. I love the Enigma. I love even the expansion. Well, the expansion slot actually kind of sucked this set because half of it was taken up by all these Evos. But I love Enigma. And so
but I love
that is the part of the set that I truly love, but I have to admit, I don't give a shit about New or Zen, but there were a lot of good Majestics for New, at least, that were worth money, and I was able to trade for, like, other stuff. Mistveil was incredibly powerful. New is... I've only lost to New twice ever, but I still hate facing her because she's just so annoying, you know, and I couldn't imagine playing an aggro deck into her, but it truly, like, it was a standout set. This set was unbelievably good and so beautiful. And I got to spoil a second legendary in a row, and it was the Meridian Pathway, and that was sweet as hell.
Yeah, this set, it was intriguing. I was not a huge fan of some of the classes, but I had a lot of fun actually playing the pre-release for this event.
The sealed was really fun for this set.
Yes, I actually tried learning Illusionist, and I sucked. I was so bad at how this works, and I lost every game. But I learned a lot in the process because I understood things after somebody explained some more things to me. So it was a growing experience for myself. But looking at how this set was composed, you're right. There's just a lot of interest. The artwork is absolutely top notch. The whole energy, flipping component, that was also a pretty intriguing
And they're
concept.
so beautiful.
I like that. They brought back again cards from, WTR into generic slots. I got a full mechanologist kind of, mini set within this technically, right? I got 5 mech cards that came in this. And not to mention, we haven't even gotten to talk about the craziest cool pack. They included these random gold packs in these boxes, which have the Enigma New Moon. So this is my Schrodinger's $5,000 pack because it could or could not have the, crazy fancy one. I'm just never going to open it because might as well not. But, that was an interesting concept as an include, right? Because you just, it I don't know. I think the set was definitely a home run.
Yeah. And I mean, there was so many, like, even Levels of Enlightenment, which weirdly enough was, I opened like 4 cases. I never pulled a single level, so I had to buy them. Cosmic Awakening was like, as a weird gimmick card, was actually like kind of usable into some matchups. And it was like, as a gimmick card, it was really cool. The art's gorgeous. Ended up being the content creator, like, spoiler promo, which was really cool. Another card that isn't as good that I also, like, I opened up like 4 cases of Mistveil. I bought a case and then I opened up like a bunch of extra boxes over the weeks. I never pulled a single attune with cosmic vibrations. I don't own a single copy of that card. I don't know why. I pulled everything else. I pulled a bunch of I pulled like 5 persuasive prognoses, but I still own a couple, but I did not get any of the attunes, so that was an interesting one to be. But yeah, this set is like, I have 3. I traded. I pulled 2 regular copies and then a foil of the weakest link. So I also traded the regular copies for foils and like an extra $5 because they were only like $5 difference at the time. Now they are way more expensive, but I have them, so I'm happy.
Well, and really, I think just to capstone this, there was a lot of intriguing components to Part the Mistveil, just holistically, and I mean the Fabled, because it was a flip Fabled, right? That was kind of a first. Don't think any other Fable was a flip, so that was kind of a intriguing component, right? It is it's energy flip. So the art beautiful. I think that, like I said, I have no quarrels with the set. I think it was kind of a fairly unique set, and I definitely think that it showed evolution in some of the thought process. Like you said, I think the power of this set kind of went up a little bit from the set prior to that. So,
yeah, Mistveil was an incredibly powerful set. Zen was a mistake, but they fixed it. They banned a shit ton of stuff, and they fixed the game a little bit until they released Ash.io deck, which comes out today of the time we're recording this. Yay!
And
I'm playing Florian, so I still would hopefully be okay. Which, speaking of Florian,
Rosetta, yeah, let's jump into the current latest set, September 2024. Been out about a month.
Wearing my Florian shirt, as you can see.
I looked for my Teklo shirt. I own that one. Well, it's not official shirt, so I need to get some more of those. But I did buy the LSS hat and the dang mug. This thing was $100. Come, that right there was my.
Oh damn!
Super. That was $100 Stanley mug, man. That was good or bad. I don't know.
Rest in pepperoni, I guess. That's absurd.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I guess supporting the company. Hopefully, you use it frequently enough to make it worth it.
Yeah, it does look pretty. I'll tell you that. So.
You know what else looks pretty?
Oh God!
One of the best cards in the set.
That is true. The putting the symbol, the earth or whatever on the card, that
in
is
the text box.
It's to me a harkening back to like maybe a homage or to Magic, because they did that in some early sets.
Their especially their what is it Ravnica set.
Yes.
This almost felt like Ravnica, to be honest. Like the whole earth theme, especially in the lightning, it feels like the Izzet and the Golgari, even the Selesnya. Like this is a very Golgari and Izzet feeling set. Like the lightning and the earth. This is my favorite card in the game right now. Just hands down, Arcane Seeds in Life. because this is like playing my old favorite Magic cards of just I'm gonna make some tokens with this card. Rosetta might even be as time. So the reason I'm saying Mistvale is higher up for me right now is because I really really loved Mistvale. I opened up more, but in terms of playing, I might, as time goes on. Oh, all the puzzle pieces, yeah.
Yeah,
As time goes on,
I was going to talk
Rosetta,
about that.
I might honestly say Rosetta might be my more favorite because I like more of the set than I did with Mistvale. Mistvale, it was Enigma. That's like all I cared about, and I loved Enigma. I still do. I just haven't played her since Florian came out. But like, and it's weird because I had little interest in Rosetta at the start. I thought I was gonna maybe play Vis, get the Runeblade stuff, whatever. Who cares? Then I went to pre-release, and I played Florian. Within the first game, I realized, oh, I fucking love this hero. I love this hero. This is insane. I'm making extra rune chants? You mean I'm playing parallel lives for Magic on a hero, and I just get to make extra rune chants? Yes, please. And I've been playing Florian ever since. I've got my CC Florian deck right here, all blinged out, and well, not blinged out, but except for the cold foil felling, which is, my little prize piece.
I went to the pre-release and enjoyed the heck out of it. I tried Aurora. It was exciting, and honestly, I feel like I should have done Florian because I was told later my pool had like so many of those decomposed cards that really I was an idiot for not going that direction. But I was trying to force myself into learning Runeblades. That's why I did it. But I guess in this case I went with the Runeblade Lightning one because I got one Majestic. It was the Arc Lightning piece, the specialization. That's why I went with it, thinking it'd be better. But yeah, I mean, the split cards are awesome. I think Florian and Aurora were pretty much a straight home run. I thought Acilia was going to be a replacement to like Mechanologist class at some point. It is a wizard, but there was a lot of intriguing things with this set. Also up to and including the extended art cold foils that exist in this set, right? That was something we talked about if we go back to our earlier conversation where they kind of, I think, learned from Dynasty. There isn't a rainbow foil extended art. It's either a cold foil full extended art or a rainbow foil non-extended art. So there was some education I think that they brought forward, and yeah, this set has some stupidly amazing artwork, and the Felling of the Crown, like you said, that card it looks beautiful. There's so many nice pieces of artwork on here. Some of the extended art cards are just phenomenal.
Call of the Grave. I've got
okay,
one. The rainbow. I've got two more coming in.
That's funny that you mentioned that because that was going to be I was going to talk about Call to the Grave to lead into where we think the future of Flesh and Blood will be.
Dude,
this is the
honestly,
last set.
honest to God, I mean, Vipox was the starting of, like, I think she might actually even be the Necromancer, because we've seen before when Vipox was in Uprising, the next set we got Arachne, and it was Arachne on the card. So Call to the Grave, I'm just saying, maybe we're getting a hot mommy, Necromancer, and I hope so, because I fucking love Reanimator decks in Magic. Token decks and Reanimator are my favorite things. That's why I love Florian. Like, he plays around with the graveyard as well as does the whole Earth. Okay, so the thing I'll say about Rosetta that I think is one of the reasons I think it's one of the best sets the game's ever seen. I know some people have some issues. They hate Count Your Blessings, yada, yada. This is the most interesting in terms of, like, hero design and like, card design. Like,
and
the whole... Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, and the heroes between Blitz and CC, they have modified the ability. So that shows that, they're actually cognizant of, if it was an 8 in Blitz or whatever.
Well, you think of the Decompose. Like, you have to jump through the hoops of getting Earth cards in your graveyard, which means you got to run some, like, subpar Earth cards, but, like, who cares? You block with them, like, Autumn's Touch, Blue block 3, cool. You got to Decompose, but you get these really powerful abilities for it. Once your hero is turned on, you're, like, actually insane. Like, I play Arcane Seeds, get 4 Rune Chants, and gain a life. Like, the fact that, especially the Rune Chant stuff, where it's, like, every time you make one, so like Germinate and Arcane Seeds are make a rune chant, it's extra. Aurora, like her whole like play stuff on the chain and then bounce it and play it again and get to do all this stuff. Auxilio's like, playing the sigils, bouncing them, drawing cards, doing combos. Verdance is like kind of like a slower version of Florian where she's playing for the really late game, and then it's just all of a sudden here's this combo that like kills you out of nowhere with a shit ton of life. Barkskin of the Millennium Tree is so cool. Earth's Embrace is so cool. Channel of the Millennium Tree. Channel Lightning Valley is a bullshit card and I hate it, but it's also really cool, This set just... The Runeblade stuff is so cool. And that's the thing. If you like one of the two classes, there's tons of stuff for you here. And even the expansion slot. Like, I
I
guess we
was
could
gonna
talk
say
about
generics, man. Like the cut through facade, the 10-foot tall and bulletproof, where you're
all of the
drinking.
grave.
Like the drink and then your intellect goes away. Like that is so flavorful and awesome. Call to the grave, truce. Like truce
Yeah.
to me, the new map. Call to the grave
Like
with like
giving
you said, necromancer.
assassins get this like really wicked looking armor set, right? Like it looks really cool.
Oh yeah.
Betsy gets a card, so she's a hero that exists. A new warrior card, Illusionist gets the arms and the cloak. The arms are really good. Like Briar gets some stuff. You got the Marvel Rosetta Thorn, the Marvel Briar. Like it's just such a Man, it's such a good set. And the Arcanite Fortress. The fact that they're making cards that work with like the Arcanite set is so
Yes.
cool. So like now
Yes.
everybody's like, man, I bought one because I'm like, man, I'm just gonna have it and just have it for when they make new stuff. We'll see.
Correct. I definitely am looking. That is on my very short list of cards to purchase.
Also, the lore they revealed in the Jarl trailer. The destructive ether tide is one of the ancient ones. It's one of the old ones. They had him as an
Ooh.
example where it's like the guy in destructive ether tide with like the whirling mist around him who's like destroying a town. They're one of the ones consuming Wraith. This is something I will say about this game. This is a big criticism. I actually think this is like more important than Elysis gives it credit for. Please hire somebody or some buddies to write flavor text. Like destructive ether tide has
so
room at the
mad.
bottom to have some flavor text. You could have said something as simple as like the ancient ones knew nothing but consumption or something like that. Like the old ones, like you could put in like some cards randomly have flavor text, but as I'm looking around, it's like, where's there's no flavor text in like any of these.
That's been my biggest gripe actually. Is I was going to talk about that earlier, but yes, it's just the flavor
Harvest
text.
season has some.
Well, the flavor text exists in little things like this, but I want it on the cards, and similar to what Roger said, he would go back and look at his old Magic cards and stare at them, and he would read the flavor text. I still to this day have a bunch of Magic cards that I go back to, same thing, and I just look at the card, read the flavor text, or I look for a relationship between them within a set, because that is the stuff that is intriguing, or I don't know. I agree. I think there definitely should be flavor text on 80% of the cards. I feel like it's not a hard ask, and I feel like it would just elevate some of these to the next level. I get not having flavor text on maybe your equipment, because that's going to be always visible and there's no sense in cluttering that up.
It doesn't need it, yeah.
But on the cards in the deck, let's do it.
Like for instance, Germinate. It's got too much text to put flavor text. The split cards, there's no really
that
room
makes
for
sense.
flavor
I
text.
understand that. Not worried about.
But then
those.
you scroll down. Now some of the cards, like Autumn's Touch, Blossoming Decay, Cadaverous Tilling, but Fruits of the Forest, instant discard this gain 2. This could have had some flavor text. Strike the Four Seasons could have had flavor text.
But you'll notice like Autumn's
them,
Touch. Autumn's Touch was a reprint. It has flavor text because it had it. Yeah.
Like Fry just says go again. You could have had some flavor text at the bottom there. Like I get not every card will, but I would love to. I think we need more. I really think that we need more. Like Snuff Out, maybe it's hard to fit that into the story. But then there's the question of should LSS try maybe a little harder to like tie their sets into a story with the art? Because like if you think about like Deadwood Dirge, it doesn't really. It's a dude playing like haunted piano, which I kind of like that Runeblades have this weird like musical theme. I think that's kind of cool, but it's like stuff that pertains to the story at least could have flavor text, and I would love to see more. I think that's like actually like it's a small detail, but it's one of those details.
It's a huge
really
detail.
important.
Yeah, it's small, but it means a lot. So like I'm gonna pick on Autumn's Touch for a second. If you go back to Tales of Aria, it actually had flavor text on it, but it was a different flavor text. And then if you look at the flavor text that they put in Rosetta, that's where they added that tree symbol, and they made the quote from Florian instead of what it originally had, which is the hands of autumn sweeps the land, grinding life towards rebirth. So it kind of is not the same, but it's just one example, right? Like they could put a lot, but they put that level of effort into rebranding that card. They could definitely do it on all sorts of cards. And to me, it would make those cards more desirable for me as a person who wants to play with cards where as I'm playing and I'm shuffling through and thinking, I can read that text or I can look at it in my collection binder, those kind of things. So
I'm now just like as we're looking at the flavor text, I'm just realizing. So Earthform says the mighty Olin once fought alongside the kin of Davnir. Their combined strength keeping the old ones at bay, and that's a quote from Oldhim. So like they've got the lore. I think it's like I actually think this is a part of the game that at this point, like 5 years in, I really hope next year sees a really big expansion of the flavor text of the lore. Maybe we get some books because like world building is like you can make a really good card game, that's great, but a lot of, especially more casual players, they love the world building. They want to like engross themselves in the world and adding those little details. Like you said, when I used to play Commander and Magic, on my off turns I would just sit there and look at the cards and read the flavor text and like immerse myself with bits of story, and it was a lot of fun, and I would admire the art. And don't get me wrong, art in Fab is gorgeous, but you know, some of the cards like Felling of the Crown has it where it needs to, but like there could be so much more.
That makes sense. So, sorry about that. All right, I would like to go into the future of Flesh and Blood now that we've covered the existing sets and talked about kind of all the different stuff. 5 years, man, it's a long time. But where is to kind of wrap out our conversation? Where do you see things going? What's the final thoughts? Where can we talked about Necromancer as a possibility? I think pirates definitely seem like they exist somewhere from some of the cards. But like,
yeah, from Trench and Cut Through the Facade definitely show
yep.
pirates. So I think, well, I guess a couple things that we do know, like the Jarl Origins deck, the Armory Origins deck. I think
Yep.
part of the future is I'd love to see at least once a year getting like a brand new hero in an Armory deck that's like an old hero that that's not really in the story right now, but is in the past. Although it almost looks like with his cards that he's like, the Frost of Eisen is leaving and now he's like coming back to life almost in a way, like kind of how old him like unthawed and now is coming back because the old ones are awake, so they're now waking up like Auxilio. That's one of the cool things. I think the story's ramping up with the War of the Monarch and the old ones coming back, and then like you've got the Olin and that awakening. Like the story's actually like I think if you're paying attention to the little bits and trails that are being left, but this is the issue, is there's no like cohesive story. It's like little bits all over the place. But like it seems even with Tekla Vossen with being the Shadow Necropotent, it's like, and with Volcor and like the Aesir, it's like, oh, the Aesir are coming back. We're gonna see like a cataclysmic like Wraith is gonna be plunged into war again, you know, and we're gonna see some cool shit. I think I'm really excited for the future of the game because it's getting cooler and cooler. The art's getting better and better. The mechanics are getting more interesting. And like the past 3 sets especially, but like Rosetta and Mistvale, dude, these sets have been hyped. They've been so good. So good. And I think LSS has learned a lot. They're improving a lot. They still make mistakes, but we better get Necromancer. I hope the story expands. We better get Necromancer. I hope that we continue to get these like playable heroes and new interesting cards, and we better get Necromancer. And that's about all I'm going to say right there.
Yeah, I mean, so there is that legendarystories.net. I use that a lot back when I was doing that Fablorian podcast quite a bit. I really want to bring that back. It's just really kind of hard when there's not a whole terribly large amount of lore that isn't dropping all the time. But that has a whole list of all these different characters in the world of Flesh and Blood. And that list right now is several hundred long. And of those, some of them exist on cards. Some of them are just quotes within a card. So they have this extremely large pool of options for us to be able to theoretically pull fairly good characters out of thin air or out of the lore. Like, as an example, you mentioned Arcanite Fortress earlier. Who the heck is on Arcanite Fortress? What is that? Who is that? Could that be a hero? What class would that hero be, right? That's an option. But going back to other stuff, I want to see exactly what I think every other player wants to see, which is Necromancer. And I'm going to be kind of sad if we don't see that, right? But going back to, and I'm going to pull out my only copy of the lore book I have, which is this paper copy here, because I still don't have a stupid real lore book. Shame on me, right? We had this page that had a bunch of different classes on it, right? So you have Alchemist that's still on here. Technically Bard, maybe, but that's only, and you had Necromancer and Cleric. So those are the only ones that were named specifically on here. But if you think about it, Necromancer and Cleric, to me, scream like that would be a good throw into, let's say, Monarch, the third part. But maybe we don't have to, right? So maybe this is just a tease and we're going to see it way later down the road. But yeah, I would love that, or a pirate, or a, you know, even a talented mechanologist. Like throw in like a like you could bolt on talents to other heroes. Like I think there was somebody that was speculating, I think based on some stuff, you might be able to bolt on some talents to existing heroes, if I recall. So like you could easily find a way to bolt on like a shadow or a light, kind of like Bolton. Yeah, that just stuff like that.
I mean, maybe. I don't know if they'll do like adding talents to things that might be a little too complicated, but there's one thing I am excited about the future too that I think they're doing is like more and more like interesting generic cards because I
Yep.
think generics really tie this game together. Like they give you a lot more depth to explore in different decks and different strategies. Like I love the existence of cards like Hand Behind the Pen and Smash Up. Truce is interesting, and I love the art. Call to the Grave. I mean, dude, we better get Necromancer.
Call
Like Cut Through
Call
the
to the
Facade is a
Grave.
great tool. You know, it's yeah, I'm really excited for where the game's going. I think we're in a strong setting. I think Flesh and Blood is like it's slow but steady. The problem is like obviously like you had said earlier to me like, you know, last night that like your stores are closing and you know, some stores aren't carrying it anymore and it's like it isn't a pretty tough market. Like it's very competitive, but I do think that we saw this big boom of games. I think that boom is going to come and go. I think all these new hype games, like look at Lorcana. Who the fuck talks about Lorcana anymore? It used to be like the biggest thing ever. And it's not saying it's not popular, but like it's no longer the new big thing, even though talk about One Piece is dying down, right? Like I have a store here who's like, everybody wanted One Piece. Now I can't sell anything. Nobody's even like really playing it right now. And it's like, and so it's just like things come and go in areas and that I'm not saying those games are dying or anything, but like, you know, I think Flesh and Blood is going to struggle sometimes. It's going to grow at other times, but I think the overall trajectory is always up, and I think it is expanding and growing slowly but surely. And I think the quality will keep it there.
Yep, I've seen a lot of positive, online thing from whether it's Twitter. I know a lot of people are leaving there and going to B Sky Social or something or whatever, and I know that there's, content creators talking about it. I've seen other videos and other games mention, I've listened to some Pokemon people talk about, yeah, well, my shop started carrying Flesh and Blood, or they talk about this, but it just seems like for every area that may not be growing, there are other areas that are growing at an
Mhm.
exponential rate. So I wouldn't use small areas that may not be growing as a good example to tell somebody to, hey, it's fearful that the game's going away. They have a plan that looks like they got a pretty strong one from what I'm gathering, and if they keep the stuff up with the hype, right, like Necromancer or Pirates, if they can get us a Necromancer, right, if they can introduce Necromancer in the deck or Necromancer as a UPF hero, right, like PVE. I'm gonna obligatorily talk about PVE for like all of 3 seconds here, but you know I know we didn't answer any PVE stuff. It wasn't even mentioned in the 5 year mark. So that to me indicates that maybe that's going to be seriously on the back burner, and it sucks, but it is what it is, right? I'm just going to wait
Mhm.
till that comes around. So
That's why I make my own casual format that I get enjoyment out of.
yeah,
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie. I am like overly hyped for the idea of Necromancer, like just the idea of bringing stuff back from the grave. I think it's gonna be CC deck. I don't see them doing that UPF. They know it's like Necromancer is a very popular thing in just fantasy in general, right? So they know that people are gonna want to play it. Like it just fits with this game so well. And it's going to use allies. Like I don't see any way that it wouldn't, but it might be like kind of like Dromai's invocations that maybe you have to jump through some hoops and you can only play them from the graveyard kind of thing. So
I would literally switch to Necromancer as a main because in Diablo I played I guess it was technically the Necromancer class because I summoned all the skeletons, the bone golem, stuff like that. Like there's so many ways you could approach that, but if you look at it from I always looked at Flesh and Blood kind of like a Diablo-esque style thing. I know it's not a direct comparison, but like in the future, right, you only have the head, the chest, the legs, and the arms. But in Diablo, you have belts, you have charms, which again we have items that are pendants and stuff. But I feel like in the future, especially with them adventing the quiver into that second slot for like the bow, I feel like there could be ways that they could bolt on different areas to increase the interesting dynamicness of what it is, right? Creating that board state or allies, as an example, is similar to like Rune Chant. So at a certain point, if Betsy can't keep up, right, maybe Betsy gets some sort of like ability to, hire assassins or you hire, a little minion or something. I get it doesn't have to be everybody's gameplay, but that's not even lore specific. That's probably not even right. But obviously,
I
Kasai
could see
got
Victor. I could see Victor having like servant tokens that are like really weak, but he just like throws a bunch of servants at you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think every hero's ever going to have, for lack of a better word, minions or allies. But I could see
Mhm.
Teklo having, little necropotent things come out or little small robots
Yeah.
that he's generating. Maybe Reinar summons, the beasts of the savage lands, and they kind of, the little squirrels run out. Or I would love like a Chatterfang, like some sort of squirrel-ish type thing. I think that'd be hilarious to have like an acorn nut collector kind of a guy where it's like, I'm going to play this and all it's going to do is it's going to throw little squirrels at you, or, I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm going way off the rails here, but I think that's everything. That's kind of, I said, at this point I'd say let's wrap things up. I know it's getting kind of late for the talk we've had, so I don't want to take this too much further, but I think Fab has a pretty bright future. And if you had to kind of maybe summarize it for other folks, I mean, even with, I would say, any missteps that I've seen so far, I feel like they've learned, but there's always room for improvement. They're not perfect, but the game is still good.
It's a lot more good than there is bad. And like sometimes they make mistakes, they make the meta unplayable. Luckily for me, again, like I can just go and play casual games with my friends. If Zen's destroying the meta, cool. I don't grind on Talishar, and I didn't have to face Zen that much at my armories because a lot of people were like, yeah, this deck's boring to play. I'll play my Azalea deck instead, or I'll play like New instead. And it's like, okay, cool. I don't have to worry as much about Zen. So I'm enjoying it. I think Flesh and Blood's got a bright future. Like you said, they keep learning about everything, every mistake they make. And again, the fact that they have a plan for the next 5, 10, 15 years and that there's like a long-term vision, that's it. Because like success comes like, okay, so new IP games can come out, they can explode in popularity. But the problem is if they don't keep people there and the hype dies down, they just die away because people stop caring. They just jump to the next big thing that comes out. Flesh and Blood has managed to stick it for 5 years, and I think they're going to be sticking it long term, and they're going to build that slow but steady, like dedicated fan base. The fact that the fan base is very dedicated says a lot, because the more it grows, the quicker it'll grow. Because there's a type of there's a lot of people who, quite frankly, only jump on things because it's popular. They just want to do what other people are doing, which makes sense. Like, I mean, that's most like at its most basic level, you want to play a game that other people are playing. It's very hard to play a game nobody around you is playing. But there are types of people who will just jump on anything popular. This is why you see the hype train go. But I think just as it grows, Flesh and Blood will expand faster and faster. It's just going to take a lot of time. Keep in mind, there's a lot of competition right now. A lot of other games have come out that are taking out that market share. If Lorcana and One Piece weren't created, Flesh and Blood would probably be even bigger. Not way bigger, but like even bigger than it is now, because there'd just be less things for other people to play. Because what are you going to play Pokemon? That game is terrible. Well, you going to play Magic? That game is terrible. You going to play Yu-Gi-Oh? That's not even a game anymore. It's a coin flip,
It's funny because the store that I actually was able to land the Dash.io deck, in all of my talkings with folks around the area that I'm from, I was always told that they were exclusively a Yu-Gi-Oh store. But when I walked in there, I was proven completely wrong. So basically, I was always misled about that shop, as an example, because I was always told they were only a Yu-Gi-Oh store. But they had everything. They had Flesh and Blood. They had One Piece. They had Lorcana. They had Yu-Gi-Oh. They had Magic. They had, I said One Piece, I don't know. But they had every Union Arena, which is one of that newer games. That's the only reason I even mentioned it when I first was chatting with you before we started recording is, they're dabbling in all of it. But for every one of those games, case in point, Altered, Sorcery TCG, Grand Archive. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I've bought a little bit of just to kind of experience to see if it's even something I'd enjoy. But I think I keep circling back to, I just like the concept of, I don't have lands in my deck. I don't have energy cards I'm dicking around with. Like, there is a thought process behind it, and every card serves a multi-function. I think that the combination of being different is why I like this game. And the community's great. So...
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of those games, like, I have a lot of respect for what Sorcery's trying to do, but it's kind of like, it's a board game. Like,
it's a board game.
It's a grid-based board game kind of thing, right? It's like a hybrid type thing. Altered is, like, it's a weird game, and I'm not going to lie, I think Altered will die a horrible death, because when you do something like stick QR codes on your cards and you make these mechanically unique, they look like shit. It looks like a dumb gimmick that you're just trying to make some quick money and you don't have a long-term vision, or you don't care about the quality of your product. Like, I like the art on the cards, but the QR codes look horrible. It makes the cards look like shit. And so it's like, why would I play this? Like, I have no interest. And when I could play a game that's as beautiful as Flesh and Blood. Magic used to have that. Then they made all their women unattractive, and then also the game is just terrible, and it's a shit fest.
This is a board game in a box, by the way. That's kind of the way I'm touting this. I said that in my recent review.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Because in this case, there's 3 decks in this one, so you can't play UPF, but in the Rosetta one, you could play at least UPF with the 4, but, it does. There's some downsides. I can't buy them individually anymore, which kind of stinks. But at the same time, you get a playmat. So
The playmat kind of sucks. I honestly say take the blitz decks out of it, stick another like 8 packs, make it like 8 to 10 packs, put some dice in it, put some acrylic resource counters or something else in it, and call it a day.
and then
Sell it
that's
as a
an
bundle.
elite. That's a fab mastery box.
And the boxes are better than the elite trainer boxes. Like they're bigger, but they're better. I mean, I don't see why they shouldn't. I think it'd be better. Just the blitz decks are do the first strike decks, do your CC precons. Fuck blitz. Blitz is terrible. I'm just kidding, but it is terrible. It's unfortunate.
Well,
But
I think at this point that's a wrap on what I got to talk about. Unless you got any final comments or thoughts, I feel like I can sign us
no,
off.
I just thank you to anybody who's watching this long. I appreciate you guys being here on Jacob's channel. So
Well, I'm assuming people know where to find you, but in case they don't, let's go ahead and tell them where to find.
you can find me at SloopDupeFab on Twitter. That's the only place I occupy. That's the only place I'm currently active. No, you can't find me. You can find me there, but I haven't logged in quite a while, so I'm not using Twitter anymore. I'm just keeping it there so nobody steals it on me, and then like all my old links go to it. But no, you obviously channel SloopDupe. I'm just here to make good fab content, which I probably am going to be trying to do a little bit of before my armory if I can after eating dinner. So.
Well, I greatly appreciate the time. It's been super fun to catch back up. I hope we can do this a little bit more often than we have. And I know everyone's busy. So, again, thank you so much for spending your time. And, dude, it's been a blast. So I'm glad that I still see you in the comment sections of other people's videos. I see you in Riddler's chats in the morning sometimes, and I'm watching that on the way back. Driving from work, so yeah.
His stuff is just, it's the start of the day. I'm at work. I can just like say good morning at the start, and then like if he says something that I disagree with, I'll hop into chat. But like most of the time, I'm just listening because like I'm at work. I've got right now it's cold, so I've got gloves on for handling lumber and that, right? Just so my hands don't freeze. So it's like hard. I've got to pull them off to type. But I do listen in because it's there. It's there and convenient in the morning, and I know I just check in at around 7:30, see if he's streaming or not, and. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks.
Well, thank you again.
Until next time, see ya. Ta-da.
That was what, like 2 hours?
Yeah, it was close. Yeah, right at. Probably shouldn't have gone that long.
Hell of a video to upload.
Yeah.
I remember doing the Chadcast. I hated the upload time. It was so annoying.